Alright, hello everybody, this is Intermediate O, and today I'm going to be doing a little commentary track to, kind of pair with the final Evangelion movie, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0. So this is just kind of an idea I had to kind of get out some of my criticisms of the movie in a way that's more casual than just making kind of a spoiler-filled review, even though this is going to end up being longer, but it's going to take less time to actually make. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to put a pretty inflammatory thumbnail for this video. So if you want to hate watch this video, I totally recommend you do that if you want to. But, so I did not like this movie. So this commentary is going to be very critical of the movie. And if you did like the movie, I'd love to see if you could watch this and then maybe I could change your mind on it. I do think if you come into this video and you kind of have positive feelings about the movie, and then you watch this commentary, and by the way, the commentary is obviously going to be long. It's going to be like 2.5 hours because that's how long the movie is. But you can just, watch this at 2 times speed in like the background. You know what I mean? Like treat it like a podcast. You can also, I'm not going to put like an MP3 for this, but you can always just, Google YouTube to MP3 converter and then listen to it that way too. And you can listen to it even faster, like 3 times speed if you want. So yeah, so listen to this. You can pair it with the movie whether or not you want to do that. But I do think once you listen to this, my voice will like ring in the back of your head, like during the scenes that I like criticize. You'll be like, darn it, he's right. Like that doesn't make sense. Like it'll bug you if you do listen to this and then try to go back and watch the movie again. And so we're actually going to be starting the commentary track at the 3-minute and the 43-second mark on the Amazon video file, and I have it downloaded on my phone. I'm not connected to the internet or anything, so that way I don't get any calls to like interrupt it. The only thing I'm worried about is like what if I have to like go to the bathroom or something or do something really quick. That would kind of suck, but I will sync it up. So we're going to start at the 3-minute, 43-second mark of the Amazon Prime video file. And I checked, I had somebody from back home check it too, so it's, no matter what region you're from, the 3-minute, 43-minute mark should be the same, like for all the regions. And what you should be seeing on your screen is actually the Toei logo for the film company just popped up. So I was debating whether or not to use that or like the upskirt shot of the Eiffel Tower when it comes up, but we're going to start here instead, and we're cutting the recap at the beginning. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I am interested if I'm going to be able to fill up like 2.5 hours of commentary just by myself. I almost feel like I'll be able to do it just because like I can ramble. I can ramble a lot. I've definitely talked on the phone with people about this movie for longer than that, so I feel like it shouldn't be too hard. If there are some lulls though, I'll use those to actually like resync the video. I'll just like, count the timer just to make sure that you're like synced up with me if you want to be. So that's pretty much it. So I'm going to do a countdown. Okay. So get your snacks, get your video set up. And then once you're ready, come back to right now, because this is when we're going to do the countdown. I actually also have snacks, and I also have a Chew High, which is an alcoholic beverage that I am going to pop open if it's getting a little bit hard to get through the commentary. So we'll see if that happens. All right, so pause, go get your stuff, come back, and once you're ready, so 3 minutes and 43 seconds, let's count down to press play, and press play on 1, okay? 3, 2, 1. All right, let's start. So the main reason why I cut out the recap actually is because, it's just recap. But there is one fun, interesting thing about the recap is that during the 3.0 section of it, there's actually a cut of 2.0 footage. And I was wondering if they're going to change that, because that wasn't actually in it when they premiered it back at the Paris event. It was the same recap, except for that. So, like, they added in a 2.0 cut into the 3.0 section of the recap, and that has stayed consistent throughout, like, the theatrical release and the 1.01 release. So I wonder why it's in there. It's just of Asuka, like, sleeping in the unit, which is from after one of the angel battles in 2.0. So I wonder why they put that in there. Oh, I did miss mentioning the Paris upshot scene, though. The Paris upskirt shot scene. I just like calling it that. Like, the movie literally starts with an upskirt shot of the Eiffel Tower. I think that's really funny. Just listening to Mari. So, thinking back on it, I don't think I was as hard on this opening credit sequence when it first came out. Like, because you're just like happy to get new footage. Like, I think it came out in 2019, yes. And at the time, it was just fun to get new footage, but slowly and slowly, my frustration with the opening scene has like hit a fever pitch. So actually, even by the time I saw the movie, I really didn't want to watch the opening scene anymore, just because they would stream it so many times, like in Japan, and I would like try to catch it because it's like like the only time you could officially catch it. And so before it even came out in theaters, I had probably seen the opening sequence like over 10 times by that point. And just I guess this is some also background information. Me watching this movie with you right now is the 11th time I'm watching the movie. So I watched it 8 times in theaters, and then I watched it 2 more times on Amazon, 1 time subbed, and then I watched it dubbed recently. And actually, it went back from the beginning. So I went back and I watched the entire 4 movies dubbed, like in order. So that was fun. Maybe we'll talk about that during some lulls in the conversation as well. But yeah. Oh, so the reason why though that I get frustrated with the opening scene. So originally, I did like the idea of the Avants, and when I was thinking how I wanted the final movie to start, I did kind of want it to start with like the Avant sequences, like at the beginning of 2.0 and 3.0. Um, but the only one to me that's like totally non-problematic is the one in 2.0, because the one in 2.0 is like it just sets up 2 new characters, which is Kaji and Mari. So like there's a little bit more meaning to it. The one in 3.0, I still do like as well, but it's not really needed. And I guess the main thing it does though is it's kind of a troll, because like that was kind of the whole point of like them premiering it early, was that everybody sees Mari and Asuka fighting in space, and then boom, when you actually go see the movies in theaters, you're like, oh, like they're actually like 28 years old, like there's a time skip that. So I guess that was the function of that one. The function of this one is pretty minuscule. Like it basically is just like them picking up extra parts. Ugh. But so yeah, so it's the longest one too. It's like over 10 minutes long. And so it's the longest one and is like you get the least out of it. And I also don't like the action that much. So I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on like what is actually happening on screen while I'm talking. But I'm not a fan of them pivoting on the Mark IV series. Like, so they pivoted on not just the aesthetics of them, but also the naming patterns. So I believe in 3.0, they were just named like the Mark IV ABC or something. And then in this one, they add like, you number the amount of units that are inside that Mark IV conglomerate. So it's like 4-4 and then like 4-2. So it's like, I believe it's 4A. No, wait. It's 4-2A, 4-2B, and then 4-4C. So I don't like that they changed the numbering system, and they also changed the aesthetics where all of them have like these angel masks now, when the Mark IVs and 3.0, none of them had the angel mask, so I didn't like that as well. And they were also like all purple, and now these ones are all like all different colors. And so I believe these drone ones are the Mark 42As. So these ones specifically, I hate how they're basically just fodder. Like, they provide like no, what do you call that? Like there's no tactics to them. They're literally just fodder that Mari can just like wipe out like nothing. And that does bug me. And that's one of the main complaints I have like in most of the action scenes in the movie, is that it's worse than the Power Rangers action scenes where you have the putties just doing nothing in the background. Like they're just there to get got. So I really don't like that. Like the choreography to me is like, it's not fun at all. Like it's not fun at all. I would have much preferred like Mari fighting 2 or 3 units that were like really hardcore going after her than a bunch of like, like dozens of units that are basically nothing. Like they're basically like made of styrofoam. Like they suck. Camera wise, I also like, it's fine. One thing that I think was funny about the dub is they actually called out the wire work, where I believe the dub actress says something about like to the pilot of the Wunder who's like helping her out. Okay, this scene actually, where how does this happen? How does she bundle up a ton of units like that? Like it doesn't make any sense at all. They just got sick of using the 4-2As, and then so they just had them all like, they don't explain it. Like it's basically like all of a sudden like a magnet, and they just like all form together into a ball, and she throws them and they explode. Like that makes no sense. Like they just got sick of dealing with them, and they just like clump them and blah blah blah. And then here we have the camouflage cocoon. Actually, let's just do a timer check just to make sure. We're at 9:46, 47, 48. So if you're there, you're fine. All right. So the camouflage cocoons, they get out of control in this movie, where it's like they're always used for like a surprise attack, and it's just annoying. Because like when you really think about it, if the Wunder's over them and they're watching the area, how do they not, like how are they not looking for a camouflage cocoon, like, there has to be some sort of, what do you call that? Like, inconsistency with, like, visually about, like, can you spot a camouflage cocoon if you're looking for it? And if you're that high up in the air, you should be surveying the entire area, so how do they not know it's coming? And that's just one of the things where I feel like you're not supposed to think about it, but I'm thinking about it because it takes me out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that's annoying because this entire sequence is, there's not really a ton of character in the sequence. It's literally just the action and the plotting of the action. And I feel like the plotting of the action is not good. It's just very, it's just very like kid in a toy box, and like nothing makes sense. That's okay. That's one of the complaints I have about the movie too. Is like a lot of the writing is very much feels like it was written by the kid on the playground who would you'd be playing pretend, and then you'd be like, I shot you. And I'm like, no, I had a shield up. And it's like, you didn't say shield. You didn't say you had a shield or anything. And it's like, well, I had a shield and you didn't shoot me. Like, that's a lot of what the writing feels like. So yeah, that's disappointing. I like the music though. The music is good. I'll try to point out the things that I do like during the sequences. But yeah. Oh, going back to the wire work thing though. It is interesting that they called it out in the dub, because they don't call it out in the dub. Like, they don't say something like wire action, I believe. But on Twitter, one of the artists did say that that is basically the Wunder's power. Like, the reason why the Wunder has the strings of light is it's basically the power of wire action. Like, you know, like in movies where like they throw around the actors with wires, or specifically in like tokusatsu stuff where you'll see planes flying with wires, and like, you know, back in the day it wasn't filmed so good, so you could literally see the wires like as they're reflecting light. Reflecting. There it goes. So that's basically the power of the Wunder. Like, the power of the Wunder is the power of, it's kind of breaking the fourth wall, but it's the power of, like, you know, wire work that you see on television. Here's the Eiffel Tower thing. So it's basically just a big action set piece. As I said, I don't like the action itself, so I was trying to find out, like, did this, because also at the time I was trying to think, like, what was I hoping it was setting up? Because I wish that there was something in here that would carry in to the rest of the movie. And what I thought it was the anti-L system and them reverting the Paris area. But it sucks because later on, basically every time they introduce the anti-L system, it works differently like each time. Like, the way the anti-L system works here is not how it works like in Village 3 in like the next part. So it like there wasn't really much to get out of this. I thought maybe it was like they were trying to set up later on in the movie that the anti-L system, or like the resurrection thing, would be they'd use that for the entire world, but they don't. But yeah. Also, the way it works here, like, it makes me it gave me so many questions at the time, where you see that even the greenery comes back to life. So like, the greenery was obviously like alive, so it just came back alive, and then also all the buildings and the cars are completely new. So like, it wasn't simply that the anti-L system here, it didn't just like uncorify the things, it like restored them to the way they were like 14 years ago when they got corified. So I thought that was also something they were going to tackle with, like, what is the anti-L system? Like, is it uncorifying something, or is it literally, you know, kind of reverting the state of something to like 14 years ago, which was maybe going to lead to time travel, which the movie does end up having time travel, but they don't really, they kind of cop out with it, so we'll get into that later. Okay. A quick thing though, oh no, because the scene's going to end soon. Another thing that makes no sense about this scene is why, like, what, like, so the point of the scene, I guess, was to just get these parts, but if these parts were so important, why did Nerve not destroy them? Like, why do they have all these Avas that are like stalking the area when they could have just destroyed all those parts? And like, you know, it doesn't make sense. Like, this movie is kind of a race to the bottom where everybody's just dumb. So if they were going to use the parts, if they needed the parts, why would Nerve not have preemptively destroyed them in those 14 years? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, so I do like this. This is one of the scenes I actually did like, and I did not think I was going to like it, is this Avant 2 section with, what do you call it? Them wandering the wasteland. And this was originally a scene that was supposed to finish out 3.0. And 3.3333, the new like 4K version, like re-edit or whatever, just came out on like Blu-ray in Japan and like 4K DVD or whatever. And I don't want it, but I really do want to see, they have extra features where apparently they have storyboards for this scrap sequence in there. Because the storyboards for the sequence were also used for like a music video that they did like a couple years after 3.0 came out. And then they reused it again in the, what do you call it? Until You Come to Me sequence that was done for the Animator Expo. So this sequence, them wandering a wasteland, has been around for like the past decade basically. So it's kind of nice to see it come to light. The thing I don't like about it, which I meant to point out in the previous sequence, is what we're watching right now is basically a flashback, or the previous sequence we're watching was a flash forward. Do you know what I mean? Because the previous sequence was happening in Paris, but this is literally happening right after 3.0, and at the end of 3.0, they, like, the timeline doesn't make sense. So basically the Paris operation was probably happening before this, because this all seems to take place in like a 24-hour span or something, like they're just walking. Which also is like, how does that happen? Like, how can they walk for a day and get picked up in a car right now? They're going to get picked up by Kensuke. Like, they walk for like a day and they get picked up and they go to Village 3. But like, if Village 3 is that close to, the old Tokyo 3 station, like, why don't they just wipe out Village 3? Like, it doesn't make any sense why Nerve isn't wiping out all these places. And this thing, you can come up with some lame excuse where you're like, oh, it's part of his plan. But it's like, yeah, but if that's part of his plan, then the other characters should be able to point that out. You know what I mean? Like, if there's no reason, if there's no apparent reason why he shouldn't just be wiping out the Eurodor facility like 14 years ago when nobody could protect it, or wiping out Village 3 when nobody's there to protect it, then our main characters should be able to go, why is he doing that? Like, there must be a reason. But they don't, because they're dumb. So it's like, a lot of this is just like, the characters are like they're one-upping each other in dumbness. Which I was actually watching a video recently about like the writer for, what do you call it? Breaking Bad, which I'm not a fan of Breaking Bad. I've only seen a couple episodes of Breaking Bad. It's not really my show, but it's interesting watching interviews about like, writers who make like successful shows or whatever. And it was funny because he talked about how one of his main things that he tries to focus on when writing, his villains specifically, is that he hated it when he was growing up when villains would lose because they were dumb. Like he never knew a villain that he liked who lost because they were dumb. So his problem with the show was that, of course, like, the bad guys are supposed to lose, so he had to come up with a way to make the bad guys lose, but not look dumb. Like, they still have to be smart. They still have to look like the main guy could lose to them, but you have to find a smart way to make the main guy win. And that's not what this movie is about. This movie is about, like, just basically when anybody succeeds at something, it's because the other side is just incredibly dumb for no reason. Yeah. Okay, so here's also something to point out. So here we have Toji, and then Rei first coming out in the town. And so there's oh wait, did I miss it actually? Where, I think I did. It just happened where Rei's like, oh, look at all these people. And he's like, what? Like, you've never been around a crowd? And so at first I thought that was like kind of a smart way to be like, what do you call it? To be like, oh, this is a new Rei, so she doesn't know this, and he knows that, so he's teaching it to her. But then when they go to his house later, he's just like, oh, you're not the same Rei? So that makes no sense. Like, that's just a straight up plot hole. Like, if he thought this is the same Rei, like, why would he say something like, oh, you've never been around a crowd? Like, they literally went to school together. Like, they've been around crowds together, like, forever. Like, more than Shinji, you know what I mean? Like, she's probably been at the same school as him way longer. So it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. This thing. I do like the A part. So, the movie is split up into a four act structure, I guess, but, like, it's just like a it's a 4-part structure. I don't know if I'd call it acts. It's just how they split up, like, the work mainly. So I'm pretty sure that the first part, the A part, is the Village 3 portion, and then the B part, which they have confirmed actually, the B part is the Wunder portion, where they're back on the Wunder, and then you have the mid-credit stinger, where, like, it pops up Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 on the screen. And then you come back, and I believe it's, like, Mari cutting Asuka's hair, and then so, like, that part is the C part, and then I think the D part, so the C part is Operation, what is it, Yamato? And so I'm pretty sure that the C part is basically once Asuka gets eaten. Like, everything after that, like, with the additional impact, like, that's, like, the D part. So, yeah, so sometimes during this video, I may reference that. Like, the A part is a Village 3 part. So I do like this. I do like the A part. This was kind of actually, like, in my predictions video, this was pretty much what I, like, wanted. Like, at the end of the previous movie, which seems like what they were planning to do, and then they cut it. But yeah, see, that was the scene right there where it's like, Toji's like, oh, you're not the same Rei? It's like, well, then why did you say that stuff earlier? Like, the stuff he said earlier doesn't make sense if he didn't realize it was not the same Rei till right now. But yeah. I also, Rei is the MVP. Like, Rei is the MVP of this movie she has the most development and she has the best development. But this is my problem though. Rey, the development that Rey gets in this movie is the same thing that the Rey we got with the previous Rey got, and they just keep on recycling it. So like I also did not like 3.0. Only two characters. Like one of the most frustrating thing about 3.0 is that only two characters had character development. Like in 2.0, everybody, like they're like, oh my god, there are so many character arcs in 2.0. In 3.0, only two characters get development. One is Shinji, and even then it's like arguable, like did he get character development? Because it's more like character regression, but then it's like there's no such thing as like negative regression. Like, I mean, wait, there's no such thing. Oh, wait, sorry. Negative regression? No, regression. Regression is still just progression. It's kind of like evolution, where there's no such thing as like de-evolution. Like de-evolution is just another form of evolution. So it's like that, where it's like Shinji changes and he has an arc, but he kind of just regresses. So that was kind of disappointing. And the only other character that had an arc in 3.0 is Rey. But the problem is even though I liked Rey's arc in 3.0, it's just the same arc. Like they literally just keep on recycling Rey's arc. Like this is like the fourth movie where she has the exact same arc, which is just like, you know, she learns to open up and like be more human, which is like, it was fun during the first two movies because it was done in a way that was like different from the original series. And I also just stand alone. Like I like Rey in 2.0 a lot. And in this version, it's just like, it's just that again. It's just repeated that again. So it's like, I like it, but it's not like this is new. It's like something, it's like literally just recycled. It's something you already did. But yeah. Let me just get up and like change my position a little bit. But yeah. And then if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, like the documentary stuff, the director, he's obsessed with angles. So like I counted it. I have not counted it since it's in my hands now, but I was trying to count in theaters actually. And I believe there's like over 30 cuts in like this one dinner scene. Like it's insane. And it's because he's trying to find an angle. Oh no, I forgot to mention it. But so the scene, the scene right before this where she was breastfeeding the baby makes no sense. Like, why is Rey in that room? Like, all of a sudden it just cuts to her breastfeeding in the dark in a separate room, and Rey standing over her, and like I just cannot think of how that would happen. Like Rey's just like, yeah, let me see that boob. Like it doesn't make sense. Like how did they get to that point? Like I guess they just wanted to include that scene. But yeah. Okay. So now Kensuke up the hill. Here's the thing. Not just bad things came out of Near Third Impact. I hate this so much. I hate this line so much because that's basically exactly what I wanted. That it's basically it's almost exactly what I wanted out of the movie was that line, except for if you caught what was the thing? What was the thing that was annoying about that line? Near Third Impact. Near Third Impact. So it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like in this movie, everybody is always saying Near Third Impact, and there's no reason they should be. Like it's like everybody should be complaining about Third Impact. Like Third Impact is the thing. Like it's the thing that like ruined the world. Ugh, it's so annoying. Asuka. So I'm pretty sure this scene is supposed to be kind of an indirect call out to the scene in End of Evangelion, where the Shinji's kind of different. You know what I mean? Where it's like in the previous scene when he saw Asuka naked at this point in the film, like he uses it as an outlet to get out, you know, his depression in a sexual way. But in this case, he's just so traumatized, which it could be like part of it could be that it is a different kind of depression. Where in this case, like look, he just threw up. Is that what Shinji is dealing with at the beginning of this movie? It's not just depression; it is PTSD. So it's like it's this mix of both. And looking at the behind the scenes stuff too, like the director only ever refers to it as depression, and it sucks because I do like one of the things that's like retroactively frustrating about the opening, this A part, is that I like it in a better movie. Like the point, like my problem with it is that it feels very unearned, and it just doesn't match. Like it just doesn't match with the story that was told like up until the end of 3.0. And a lot of this movie feels like they're ignoring like all of the problems of 3.0 and running away from them, which is the irony of the movie, where it's like, you know, Ava is supposed to be a story of like, you know, not running away, and like this movie is like entirely running away from like all of the problems that it set up for itself. And it's basically like, no, just ignore those don't exist. Like I'm not really here, like blah blah blah, I can't hear you. Like that's what this movie feels like to me. But yeah. I do love okay, this thing. I do love Ray, and I love like they didn't include this in the what do you call it in the dub or like the Japanese sub, but like so in Japanese like when Hikari is teaching Ray words, like she's saying omajinai, which is kind of like a charm. So she's saying the words are like a charm. Like this is a special charm to like wish people a good night. This is a special charm to like wish people good morning. So like I feel like that was nicer. I wish that could have come through better. But yeah. And this oh my god, this scene like did they really like I like I'm pretty sure technically you could call this like this is a labia shot. Like what they showed you right now, like there's no way that isn't her labia. Like even though it's like in shadow, like obviously what would be in shadow right there is Asuka's labia, and it's just like it's too much. Like I know people were complaining about the fan service, and most of the time it goes over. Like I just like I'm pretty numb to it. Like I don't notice it so bad. But that's one of those things where it's like literally Asuka's labia. Like did you need to do that? And then later on in the movie, like the taint shot from Sakura, that's also pretty egregious. Like those are the two that kind of took me out of it. It's like, oh wow. But yeah. See. So like in the English subs, they just say like it's a thing you say to blah blah blah, but like in Japanese it's like it's more like it's a charm. Like it's a special charm to like wish people good morning. So I do like that aesthetic better, I guess. But yeah. And I do love the song actually. And I do this thing. I really do like Ray. And this is the thing. I'm not a Ray fanboy. Like, I was never Team Ray in the original series. I think Ray is a very weak character in the original series. Like, she's not a bad character. She's just not my cup of tea. And I feel like, of the main cast, not even of the main cast, like, Ray in the original TV series is weaker than even some supporting characters like Ritsuko or Misato. Like, even though she's supposed to be one of the main girls. So I really do like Ray in the first two movies. And she's also the standout of these last two movies, but that's literally just because they repeat her arc again, so that's kind of annoying. Okay, this cut of animation, I was trying to determine, is this cut of animation good? And I'm trying to think, because one of my other problems with the movie is that it doesn't have a lot of good animation. Like, when you compare this to even modern TV anime, like modern TV anime goes hard, and I feel like this final movie like never goes hard at all. And when I say go hard, I mean like even just basic character stuff like this, like the planning the things. And I'm like, it's technically good, but it doesn't look special at all. And I guess the main thing, okay, actually, quick thing, people call this sequence the A part, the Village 3 part, they call it the Ghibli sequence, and I really don't like that. And it's also because like I'm a huge Ghibli fan, and this opening sequence feels nothing like Ghibli to me. I feel like the only reason people say that is because it's like there's nature and it's calm. But I'm like, that's not just what Ghibli is. Like, Ghibli is like, it is about anima. Like, it is about animation and bringing things to life. And my problem with this opening sequence is that it's still pretty boring. Like, they don't put a lot of love into, like, the movement of nature. And so that's what I'm trying to think. Like, when she's planting this stuff, it's technically impressive, but it's boring in a way where it's like, it's very photorealistic. Like, there's no really, like, what do you call that? Like, it doesn't give it life. Like, it doesn't breathe life into it. Like, anima, literally the basis of animation. Like, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Like, it's alive. Like, also comparing to other anime, and also Studio Ghibli is like, when people say they love seeing animated food or, like, food in anime? Like, why is that? And it's like, it's because, like, it looks so, like, it has life to it. Like, there's this life to it, and I feel like that's what's missing here. Like, it feels like something that is technically animated to proficiency, as if it were reality, but it feels very lifeless to me. It also doesn't help that there's not a ton of cuts of animation. Like a lot of the animation, if you want to call it in the movie, is just these cuttings from angles. Like there's so many angle changes. It's not actually about like the cuts of animation. But here's a nice one coming up right now, where I believe a kid's gonna run past Ray. See, and that was nice. That's nice. That's good animation. But it doesn't feel like alive, if you know what I mean. Like it feels very like realistic. Even though I don't think that was rotoscoped, but that is a problem in earlier parts and like later on, like the part where Shinji's walking up the hill with Kinsuke was a rotoscope scene, and then later on we're gonna get with Asuka where it's rotoscoped when she's like shoving food into his mouth, and like I don't like how that looks either. Like it's not really that impressive. It literally just looks like it looks laborsome. You know what I mean? Like it almost looks factory made, where it's like okay, you rotoscoped a scene, and then yeah, it's just going to you just gotta sit there and rotoscope. Trace over every image to make it look realistic. Yeah. I'm gonna try to stop going off so much and like comment on what is actually happening on the screen, because I feel like that's been missing. Because here we go. Here we go, this scene. The force feeding scene. This is also the thing you should like try to remember is that Asuka is, even in her own words, she's an adult. Like, she's an adult 28-year-old woman. And like, ugh. See, I don't like how this looks. And the thing is like, when I look at it, I know that they put a good amount of effort into it, but like effort isn't the same thing as like creativity. You know what I mean? Like, it just looks very labor intensive, but not like it has a lot of heart or passion in it, which is kind of a main complaint of the movie as well. It's like it feels pretty soulless. But yeah. And I'm trying to think, like, how do I feel about the actual speech that she's giving him? Because I kind of understand it, but because like the near fourth impact, if that's what you want to call it, at the end of 3.0, it was his fault. So it's like, yeah, that was his fault. Like, I don't know. Asuka's all over the place in this movie. Like, Asuka to me in this movie is just like a non-character. Like, she does not make sense. Wow. My thoughts have been all over the place. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to release this video. But yeah. And so this is interesting because this is kind of a reprise at the walk at the beginning of the movie again. And I do wonder, because we're gonna get a shot pretty soon that is very similar. It's very similar to the shot that's like actually on the screen that I'm using for this shot of Shinji just like sulking and weaving back and forth is very similar to the shots that were also used in Until You Come to Me and the cut D part of 3.0. And so one thing that they did change, like I wonder at what point in the process this changed, is that it was supposed to be winter or at least snowing during the walking sequences. And I feel like that must have changed very late on because like in both the cut D part for 3.0 and then Until You Come to Me, which came out a couple years after that, it was snowing during these sequences. And so if you equate that to it being winter, like basically all the stuff that was happening with Rei couldn't be happening. Like they couldn't really be farming. I mean, there are of course winter crops, but like that would have been like a much tonally different scene. So I wonder if the stuff they did with Rei was kind of like extended on because they changed the weather time. Because they could have just actually also a thing from the like the what do you call that? Not the commentaries, the documentaries. Is that at one point it's so funny. Like literally he gets some negative feedback about this A part, and like he's just like, I'll just cut it. I'll just cut the entire thing. It's so funny. But when I think about it, it's not that surprising because it's like if it was supposed to be at the end of 3.0, like I guess the only like plot wise, the only things he was attempting to do with the sequence was Shinji gets out of his depression and Rei dies, which I guess it wouldn't really take that long because like if you watch the Until You Come to Me short, it's like I don't know, like 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long, 5 minutes long maybe, and that's basically what happened. So it's like it didn't need to be this 40-minute sequence. Like it could have been something he accomplished in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where it's just like Shinji gets back, he gets up a little bit of his courage back, he like defeats his depression, and then Rei dies. Like that's really all that needed to happen. But I do like the sequence a lot. My other problem with the sequence though is that maybe I should have written down things that I needed to like, that I wanted to mention. But my problem with the A section though, because it is to me the best part of the movie, and basically after the A part, the movie's done to me. So that's why like it's so interesting that he was saying that I could just cut it, because when I think about like, so what he's saying is that the real movie is what's after the A part, which is basically once they get back to the Wunder, and I'm like, that's to me where the movie takes a nosedive, where it's like basically the movie finishes like Shinji has a complete arc during this A part section. Like he learns that like there are good things and like people who like him outside the Eva, and he doesn't like he can just be there with the people. And thematically, it would actually make more sense if he doesn't go back to the Wunder. And he does. I'm like, I guess I'm fine with that. Like, it could go either way, where it's like he goes back or he doesn't go back. But like, ultimately, Shinji's character arc finishes like 40 minutes into the movie, and then after that, it's like what would that be, like almost 2 more hours of just straight up action, and like it has no character stuff to me. Like that's kind of one of the main reasons why the back half of the movie really sucks. Okay, so this scene too, why does Asuka, this is also doesn't make sense. Why does Asuka pull a gun? I know it's a stun gun, but like why does she pull a stun gun on somebody who comes to visit her? Because it's like, it's 14 years later, and they live in a town of 1,000 people, which is insane, by the way. Like that's so few. So it's like, and it's not like they're dealing with bandits. Like, you know what I mean? Like bandits can't be like coming to the wasteland or anything. So it's like, why would you be pulling a gun on what has otherwise been shown as this super like idyllic, peaceful village? But yeah, we'll see what happens to this commentary, because there's like a lot of small things that I want to comment on, and then I get sidetracked. Like this stuff with them being pre-programmed and everything, and like some of the things I'm mentioning that are going to come up later on. So it's like I go back and forth, but But yeah, I do. I do. Sorry, I actually am like, because I'm trying to comment on like things that are actually happening. So I'm like watching it more actively. So I get kind of a little bit absorbed. So one of the things that people have said about the movie, though, like people who have liked the movie, they've said that, like, oh, it feels long, which is very funny to me, because like, so this is my 11th time watching it, and it actually does not feel that long to me. Like, it feels like it goes by pretty quickly, so I wonder why that is. Even though I don't like the movie, there are only a couple scenes that do feel like they go on too long to me, which are the action scenes. Like the Paris thing in the beginning feels way too long to me, and also the descent later on with the 7 series, the Mark 7 series, that also feels way too long to me. But this like stuff in the beginning I like it doesn't feel long to me at all, like this opening section. But yeah, that was a nice scene though, where she like comes to visit him. And then we get this scene where he cry eats. So that's an interesting thing about the dub, is that they keep a lot of the same sound effects in the English dub of the Japanese actors. So like this scene right now where like he's gonna start crying and eating, they don't use the English dub voice actors sound effects. They use the Japanese actor sound effect, even though when they're actually speaking, it's the English dub actor. Very strange. There are also just some straight up errors in the previous dubs and then this dub as well. So that's, yeah. I may make like a little thing on Twitter to mention those, or if I remember them, I'll mention them later on in the video. And this is our second musical interlude of just like town life. I do wonder what was the impetus for this, because it's not just that, like, we had background songs before in Ava, but a lot of them are very operatic. These ones are straight up like musical montages to like spoken songs that you're like supposed to be able to hear the lyrics to. So that's interesting. I do think I have like the one video on the back burner, which is like the movie that inspired this movie, which is Sayonara Jupiter. And this is one of those things that is eerily similar to Sayonara Jupiter, where in Sayonara Jupiter, there's kind of an idyllic, peaceful. It's not a village so much. I mean, it's kind of a village, but it's like a beach society, and they do the exact same thing where there's musical interludes. Like all of a sudden, there's like just like 2 minute long musical interludes in the movie, like just showing shots of this idyllic beachside society. So I feel like maybe that's what this is kind of related to. Like it could just be kind of an offhanded reference to that. And of course, the big reference to Sayonara Jupiter is, they use one of the songs from the movie at the very end. But yeah, I'll mention those when they come up. But yeah, I did buy the soundtrack and I like the music, but I'm trying to think, is it hard to detach? It's not that hard to detach from the music because I just like the music. The one song that is hard to detach from the movie is One Last Kiss. Like I can't really listen to One Last Kiss because it just like hits me in a gut where I'm just like, ugh, that's like the final scene of the movie, which I really don't like. But yeah. And I do wonder how much time passes, because they make it seem like days, but maybe weeks pass while all this is happening. Okay, this is the other thing. No, okay, we're gonna go with this scene. This stupid Kensuke Toji scene, where I was giving Kensuke the benefit of the doubt before this, and then this is where like my opinion of him turned, where the first thing is where he blamed Near Third Impact on Shinji, and I'm like, Near Third Impact was nothing. Like that's like Why does anybody care? Like, everybody's talking about near third impact in this movie, and they shouldn't be. Like, near third impact was nothing. Like they should be talking about third impact. Like, it doesn't make any sense, and they only mention third impact a couple times. Um, but so that scene, why that bugs me is because like he's like, oh, like basically, I feel like up until that point, Kinsuke was portrayed as he's just trying his best with, like, he's just doing what he thinks could work. But in that scene, he's like literally talking to the person who's like the town doctor. And I know this is more of a psychology thing, but then all of a sudden he gets all high and mighty and he's like, no, this is the way we should do it. Like, we shouldn't, like, we should give him his space and not talk to him. And that's also why this is super annoying because so Shinji is suffering from depression and also PTSD. And I feel like the main thing is depression. Like, that's obviously what the director is intending, even though it gets very, it gets very murky when you start mixing in PTSD into that. But it's annoying to me because okay, this thing, the director of this movie, he's like a grown man. He's a grown man, and he is a multimillionaire, and he chooses to have a movie and a series that's kind of known for its portrayal of depression, and he revisits that all these years later, and he decides to not kind of give it a more, I don't know, gentle touch than what he does. Like, he basically treats depression as, I mean, basically, I feel like he treats depression and the character's depression in a way that you should, at the beginning of your movie, have a thing that pops up where it's like, there's portrayals of depression in this that may be problematic, because I feel like they kind of are. Because it's like, most, like, if you do any research, like, for PTSD and depression, one of the first things they recommend for treatment is therapy. And that's, like, not what this movie is interested in at all. Like, they are literally just like, wait for him. And this thing, I do think there are good portrayals of, because I think part of the problem is that the creator is projecting his own depression onto the movie, and I don't think he's going to therapy, that's kind of a sad thing to say, and I could be wrong. I'll totally be fine if I'm wrong with that, but I don't think he does go to therapy. Like, I don't think he's interested in actually discussing depression and, you know, mental illness in a kind of more progressive way, so that's disappointing. But I feel like also the depression he has is the kind of depression that's like, it's a cloud, and I feel like a good example of this is actually this really old, like, first season episode of The Simpsons, where Lisa gets depression, and she has depression, and she doesn't really, like, there's no real specific reason, she just has it, and then her family helps her get through it, and it's a really nice episode, and I feel like that's the type of depression he's pretending Shinji has, but that's not the type of depression Shinji has. Like, Shinji has depression that is very, very clearly linked to things in his real life, such as, you know, everybody hating him, people blaming the apocalypse on him, his friend's head, well, this is more the PTSD thing, getting blown off in front of him. Like, these are things that he needs to work through, and instead, they don't deal with that. So that's kind of annoying. Yeah. And so going back to now the anti-L system, so this is the second time we see it, or, I mean, in this sense, and it works completely different. It works completely different from the one at the beginning of the movie, because the one in the beginning of the movie worked like a radius, you know what I mean? It was a radius from the pillar, and then all of a sudden, this new anti-L system works like a fence. So it's like, why did they even introduce at the beginning of the movie if they're going to introduce a different way it's used? And then if you go back even further, if you look at the anti-L system back in 3.0, it doesn't even work the same, because they used it, they showed it around the Wunder, like, around the Wunder were also these pillars that they were carrying on boats, but the pillars weren't, like, purifying anything. Like, there was no force field, and it's not like they were purifying the ocean, which you would kind of assume it should be. Like if it works on the earth, it probably should also work on the water, but it doesn't. So yeah, so like basically every time we see the anti-L system in the series, it's being used in like different ways, which is just super confusing. But yeah. Okay, so this is also interesting, where now we have Hikari talking about life is a repetition of like good and bad days. And I think when I watched 2.0, I think it's very similar to a line that another character says. I think it's when Misato's like sitting on a chair and she's spinning around in a circle, and I think Ritsuko says the line, because they're talking about like how the days have kind of become slow and there's no angel attacks, and how that's actually a good thing, and like, you know, just repetitive days. And that's like, so that line seems like it's a reference to that. And then later on too, we'll also get a line from Kinsuke that seems like it's doing the same thing. Like it's very similar to what Kaji said in 2.0. So I wonder. I'm pretty sure that that one is intentional, and I wonder if the Hikari one is intentional or if it's just they're repeating the same thing again. Okay, I do like this. I really this sucks because I really liked the idea that he would name her like a new name, and then I hate it later on when he doesn't. But I do like that. I like that idea, and they just like they don't do anything with it. It sucks. But yeah, this is one of those other things too. So at the rate thing, like I guess it depends on like how you want to look at it. But I totally understand if somebody's like annoyed that Ray lasts so long. Because it's like, what, like, yeah, why is she lasting so long? Like, so now we see like one of the first effects of her, running out of time, but it's never really specified why. Like, why does she run out of time? It kind of delivers on what was introduced in 2.0, where Ray mentions like I can only live inside of this tank or something when they're at the aquarium, and now we have this Ray who's just like, yeah, I can only live at Nerve, but they never really tell you why. And then where it gets really annoying is later on where we, learn about Asuka, where it's like, well, then why doesn't that happen to Asuka? Okay, and so a quick thing I want to mention during this scene with Toji. What's really annoying, talking about like a commodity, which is like an English term they use in the Japanese. But so I did not like the introduction of Credit because Credit felt like I was like, why did they introduce this new organization called Credit when it's basically just Vile? And then they say it literally is just Vile, like it should just be Vile. And then I was thinking, I'm like, oh my god, you know what they're gonna do? They're totally gonna make crates that say Credit on them so they can sell them in real life. And then look at it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. There they are, right there, Credit crates, and you can buy those. You can buy those at the Ava stores in Tokyo. So that was so annoying. Which is it is kind of annoying because that happens so much with Ava, where it's like something happens and it's so obviously it's just to get it's product placement, like that's all it is. So that's so annoying. And then also if you look at Credit's logo, the shape of the logo is what the original Vile logo is in reference to. So if you look below the Vile logo, it has like a little dot system that kind of looks like train tracks. And so it seems like, yeah, maybe the original idea was to just have Vile also be Credit, because it is, like, Vile is Credit. And then they just introduced Credit so they could have like a new merchandising thing. So that's annoying. Now this is the third time. This is the third time Kinsuke pisses me off. It sucks because Kinsuke was like, that first line was so close to exactly what I wanted out of the movie. And then now we get this little scene where they're at the little graveyard and his father died after the impact. Your father's still alive, right? Even if you think it'd be useless, try talking to him, or you'll regret it. F you, Kinsuke. Sorry, I'm gonna try to not cuss, and obviously that was not cuss, but if I do curse, I'm gonna have to like bleep it, because I don't want to like curse. But, F you, Kinsuke. He's so annoying, because it's like, literally what just happened right there, is Kinsuke's like, you should talk to your dad. And it's like, oh my god, his dad is like super Hitler. Like, Gendo, this is not an exaggeration, people. Like, Gendo is like super Hitler. Like, he literally killed almost everybody on the planet. Super Hitler, okay? And stupid Kinsuke is like, you should try talking with your dad. Shut up, Kinsuke. You suck. But yeah. Ugh. There's one more scene. There's one more scene that super pisses me off about Kinsuke, and I'm just like, you suck, Kinsuke. So this is the problem. I can totally talk this through this entire movie. And it's gonna be good to listen to, maybe like, just as like a podcast, maybe not so much as a commentary. So yeah. Sorry, I'm resituating myself. Do I want a snack? I have a Snickers. Do I want a snack right now? I think I'm fine. So yeah. And so here we have like the L system again. Now, is this working differently? Because this is a test area, and I guess this is like, I don't know. It could be working the same or differently. But yeah. So I do kind of like this, the introduction of, Misato and Kaji's son. Originally though, so when I first saw the movie first time in theaters, when it said R Kaji on his thing, I was like, is it really? Because I was like, because that would be a bit, like, to me, that would be the more unexpected thing, to find out that Kaji was still alive, which is what I was wondering. Like, I was wondering, like, if Kaji was still alive? Okay, but yeah. Okay, so now we're on this tracks. And so this thing, too. So if you pay attention, you can see that they're going through the wasteland. So, like, everything we're seeing in the background right now is, like, all chorified. So I do wonder, like, how far they were away from the village. And then how long things last, too. Because, like, they parked in the chorified place, and now it's sunset. And so why isn't the car chorified? Like, how things do actually last. Because, like, in the Paris area, it got chorified really quick. Like, you could see the thing they landed on was getting chorified, so I wonder. Okay, but this is the scene that I'm like, screw you again, Kinsuke. So Kinsuke's entire speech right now is basically trying to tell Shinji. This is also the scene that is mirroring Kaji. So, like, basically Kinsuke just acts as Kaji 2.0 in this movie. So sorry, that was confusing because 2.0 is also the name of the second movie. But in the second movie, 2.0, Kaji has a scene where he's, like, helping Shinji farm. I guess it's more like Shinji's helping him farm. And he basically he basically tells him that he's not the only, wait, okay, maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe it's not the farming scene. It may actually be at the what do you call it? I think it's at the aquarium scene, actually, where Kaji tells Shinji that exact same line, like, you're not the only one who's suffering, in reference to the exact same person, Misato, because he's telling him about Misato's past, where he was, what do you call it? Where she survived second impact. But that rings so hollow when Kinsuke's doing it, because it's like, B-word, she put a bomb on my neck, and she blamed me for the apocalypse. Like, it's not the same. Like, it's not the same. And then it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it does not make any sense. And I guess, like, you could say that, like, Kinsuke doesn't know that Misato did that. But then he's trying to say, like, Misato, like, she really regretted, like, putting everything on you. But it's like, okay, but then she literally did not stop doing that. Like, if your information only goes up to that point, her ultimate decision was, but you know what? I'm going to blame the entire end of the world on you. So it's like, that speech doesn't make any sense. Like, it's also like, if this were to actually happen, which I don't think it would, because, like, the only reason this is happening is because it's bad writing, is that if this were to actually happen, it would be like Kinsuke's an a-hole. Like, because she literally blamed everything on him still. Like, she put everything on him. It's so annoying. But yeah. It's a very hate-filled commentary. That's what you came here for. One of the other reasons I wanted to do this, though, is because, like, I don't know if it's going to help me, because I did kind of want to do, like, a proper video about, like, these are my problems with the movie, and I thought maybe this would help me get them out, and I think this is actually a lot less structured, so I think I'm going to enjoy listening to this. Like, I'll listen to this, like, I go back and I rewatch all my videos, like, too much, so I'm going to enjoy revisiting this commentary to listen to myself, but I don't know if it's actually going to help me to, like, structure a video, like, you know, I don't like this movie, here's why. Like, I don't know if it's going to help me with that. But yeah. Okay, so I liked this scene, but my problem with I'm trying to, like, you know, sync it up with, like, me talking about the movie while actually, like, the things are happening that I'm talking about. Okay. I wanted to harvest rice. So this scene would have been nice. The thing that takes me out of this scene is the plug suit. Okay? Because even, like, I know what's happening. Like, when this is happening, I'm like, oh, she's gonna, like, blow up or something. Like, I already knew that's what was gonna happen. But when I saw her plug suit, the first thing I thought, like, that scene where, like, she explodes very loud in the theater, and I could not enjoy it at all because I'm like, oh no, like, literally that voice inside my brain was like, oh no, they're gonna make a figure out of that, and they did, and to me that's so demented. This goes back to the commodity thing where it's like they introduce credit literally just so they can have new merchandise that you can go buy at the Ava store right now. And guess what? You can go to the Ava store right now and buy merchandise of Rei in her suicide plug suit. Like, that's the thing that, like, super takes me out of it. It's like, it would be like in a movie about, like, okay, let's just say somebody who got, like, executed, like, beheaded, and, like, if you could buy the outfit that they got beheaded in, and you're like, nah, like, what? Like, it's so demented. And you can go right now, like, they have multiple merchandise where you can get Rei in her plug suit, and specifically they even have a figure right now where, like, you can get Rei in her figure and pose her in her white suicide plug suit. Like, it's so demented to me. Like, I don't understand how if you buy merchandise of Rey in her white plug suit, I don't understand how you don't understand how that's effed up. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me how you don't understand that. If you buy it ironically, that's totally fine. Like, if you think it's funny that they made a suicide plug suit merchandise of Rey, then that's fine. But if you buy it unironically, that's crazy. Like, that's so crazy to me. Yeah. This cut is also strange, where I wonder if I go back and forth where I feel like he told them. I feel like he must have told them what happened to Rey, because otherwise the scene is too fast. You know what I mean? Because there is that cutaway for a second. So I like to believe that he told them what happened to Rey, and that's why he wants to go. Because otherwise it's a pretty quick turnaround where it's like, yeah, you'll just come with us now. Sorry, cough. Sakura. This is the thing. Also, in my prediction videos, Sakura and Midori were like my... They were like my... What do you call that? The two characters I was most interested in. And boy, did they just crap the bed. But yeah, I'll talk about them more later. Very interested. It's so funny because I was very interested in them. And I'm almost upset how on the nose I was about like them playing a role in the movie. And then the writers just completely ruining the potential of the two characters. It sucks. Yeah. This is also very strange, where it's just like, oh no, we're not going to put the choker on him. Where it's like, that's what you... a lot of this movie feels like that's what they should have done in the previous movie. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe don't put a bomb on him, and in this movie they don't do it, and they're like, oh, because he's in a bomb room. It's still very strange, though. But yeah. It is also very strange that none of the other characters ever mention Karu, like the existence of the character of Karu at all. Like, especially like they've said some behind the scenes stuff where like Karu was like, you know, he was present. Like, he was present during the time skip, like those 14 years. So it's like, why does nobody know about him? Like, why does everybody ignore his existence? But yeah. Yeah, now I'm thinking about, like, I like doing this commentary, but I'm thinking about... I put a pretty inflammatory thumbnail, and I'm thinking maybe I should save that. Maybe I should save that for like a proper video about like why I don't like the movie. Because I feel like I'm not going in as articulately as I would be in a video like that. Like, this is very off the cuff. But yeah. Okay, and this is another thing, like, them not abiding by their own rules, where it's like, okay, no, wait, never mind, I'm not gonna talk about it, I'll talk about that later. Alright. Midori. Yes, Midori! It's so funny, because I actually still do like Midori a lot, even though they bombed her character. Like, her character doesn't make any sense in this movie. But yeah, because this is the thing, this exchange that they're all having right now should have happened in the previous movie, and they shouldn't have ever, like, they should have never, like, really outwardly been hostile towards Shinji. Which they kind of weren't. Like, it was mainly Misato. And that's the thing that doesn't make sense too. It's like, she's the one who should have been the most gentle with him, and she was the harshest. And this is the thing that doesn't make sense. All of them are discussing near third impact, and it does not make sense. Like it just does not make sense. Like, near third impact was like... It was like something that would happen in near... What do you call that? Tokyo 3 anyways. So... I do like that line. I feel like it works better in Japanese, where basically the implication is that, like, she's like, you're basically telling me, like, I shouldn't care whose piss I'm drinking because they're, like, refining it. Of course I'd care. And I feel like that makes more sense. Like, that what do you call that? That nuance. Where it's like, yeah, like, of course, like, if you drink some water and you find out it's recycled piss, like, that's one thing. If you find out it's the recycled piss of, you know, that person you hate, of course you'd care. So it's like, it's kind of that thing. Where it's like, it's not just about the result, it's also about, like, how you got to that point. But yeah. This is also strange, where, like, this is kind of their last-ditch effort to give Mari more character, where they're just like, yeah, she reads a lot. And it makes me think, though, where I'm just like, this is in the future from our future, where they already have future tech in the past of our present, but why don't they have, like, I'm like, Mari, buy a tablet. That's what I'm thinking. Where I'm just like, why, like, I understand liking to read a lot, but yeah, like, just get a tablet. Like, yeah. This sequence too with Ritsuko and Misato finally explaining what the Wunder is also very strange, where it's like, I don't, this thing, it just does not make sense, the relationship that Vile, Vile slash Misato slash the Wunder have with the public. Because, like, Vile came from Nerve, and Nerve were the bad guys, and, it doesn't make, I don't understand what am I trying to say? The discrepancy, that's it. I don't understand the discrepancy between the faith that the public has in Vile and the hate that the public seemingly has, because they didn't deliver on that. Like, when he lives in Village 3, like, nobody even attempts to confront Shinji about anything like him being a bad guy or anything. So, but like, I'm talking about like Midori, basically. Like Midori and Sakura, where it's like, the contempt that they have for Shinji, it doesn't make sense why they don't have that for Misato slash Vile slash the Wunder as well. Especially, like, they just explained how Kaji is, he's contradicting. Where, like, he saved humanity, but he saved humanity while trying to save... They don't make it clear when they say species, do they only mean plant species? Because they make it seem like that is the case, actually, that it is just plant species. So it's like, he didn't even try to save human beings. And I'm just like, how would people not be pissed about that? Especially during the sequence when they're shooting the seeds out into outer space after this. I'm just like, shouldn't those be people? You know what I mean? Like, how are all these people on the Wunder, who are volunteers basically to protect humanity, how do they not see... Like, it's a very strange sequence. Like, it doesn't make sense why everybody would be so okay with wasting so many resources to shoot seeds into outer space instead of, I don't know, shooting humans into outer space. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's basically the joke with, like, reality nowadays, where it's like, you know, all these millionaires are escaping to outer space, and it's like, yeah, like, care about the people who are alive right now. Ugh, it's so annoying. And okay, so this is just another thing where it's like, how does I was gonna try to talk about like more like fun facts too, like behind the scenes stuff. But complaint wise, how does Nerve, a facility, how does it fly? Like, how does a Nerve facility fly? And then on top of that, how does it have the ability to just like telekinetically pilot or like, you know, what do you call that? Carry the Black Moon. Like, that's insane. Like, the Black Moon is gigantic. Like, how does it just have the power to manipulate and to use that? You know what I mean? Like, when you're working on that scale, so many other things just start to break down. Where it's like, how am I supposed to take anything seriously when you have people who can just magically control moon-sized objects for no apparent reason? Like, it's crazy. Ugh. Okay, so fun fact. Here's a behind the scenes. If you looked at Misato's bed with the red thing, not the red, sorry. Why did I say red? Because red rhymes with bed, maybe? The bed in the blue. So there you go, the blue bed. So the reason why it has all those belts, I found out afterwards, by coincidence, I was watching a NASA video, those are zero gravity beds, so they can strap in when there's no gravity on. So that's an interesting little fun fact that I just like happened upon. Because I remember watching the movie and thinking her bed looked weird, and then like a couple months ago, I was watching a NASA video, and then I saw that like basically the exact same bed in the International Space Station. I'm like, oh, that's what the bed is. It's an anti-gravity bed. Okay, so this is the part. This is now the C part of the movie, is what I consider it. I'm pretty sure it is, like, because always the C part starts at the eye catch that we just had with the Thrice Upon a Time. But yeah. Okay, very interesting thing by the way. So like one of those things I kind of like try to reconcile with is, see this, like how does Nerve fly, and then how do they control the moon? That's crazy. Like, it's just crazy. Like, how's that not crazy to people? And also, this is kind of a retcon where there's 5 crosses. Because if you go back to 2.0, you can see the crosses. Like, you can see the crosses in 2.0, and there's only 4 of them. So that's kind of a retcon. But yeah. Sorry, I held in a burp because I realized it'd be rude to burp, maybe. But yeah. Okay, what do I have? Do I feel like alcohol level yet? No, I don't. By the way, if I have alcohol, Oh my god. Okay, so this is so annoying that like we finally got like a little bit of a flashback, and they don't answer anything. They don't answer anything. But yeah, and there we go. Here's that zero gravity bed. Okay, so this is interesting. In Japanese, in English, like in English in Japanese, she's saying the phrase bad news, and then she says, oh, but this is also good news. And so I'm pretty sure, I'm not certain, because good news, bad news is something that any Japanese person would recognize, like they know the word news and they know the word good and bad. It's not really a set phrase that people say often, though, so I feel like it could be a reference to the fact that good news, like they basically did that so that they could say good news in English, because good news is the English translation of Evangelion. Like Evangelion in Latin, I believe, literally means good news. So yeah. So I feel like that's kind of supposed to be a little fun reference to that. Some of the space stuff too, it makes me wonder where they I also, by the way, I like this background music a lot. Like probably the two songs I listen to most from the soundtrack are Yearning for Your Love and this one, which I can't remember. I can't remember the song. What is it? I think is it Loneliness? I think it may just be called Loneliness. But yeah, I listen to this song a lot, and I listen to, what do you call it? Yearning for Your Love, which both have the same lyricist and singer. Like it's the guy who sings it also writes it, and he's also the guy who wrote Home Sister Todd. So that may be one of the reasons why I kind of like them. But yeah. Okay, so this scene, like this is the only thing we get of Third Impact, and so this is one of the few times where they mentioned like Third Impact. And I believe it was earlier too when, what do you call it? When it may not have been right now. It may have been earlier when they were talking about Kaji in the seed pod area. But yeah. This is also like, what did Kaji do? Like, so if what we just saw with Lilith being fused with the, what do you call it? With Mark 6, and Kaji went to stop it, what can he do? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, like what? Like, I don't get it. So one thing is that the spears were missing, so like maybe he like dropped a spear on them, like I don't know. But like it's very hard to mechanically understand like what could he have physically done to stop the impact. It's hard. Okay, and here we get another merchandise opportunity where they get new suits, and so this bugs me because literally in the past movie, like so the see if you see Asuka's old suit, she used that for one mission. Sorry, literally one mission. Mari used hers for two, I guess. She used it for 3.0, and then she used it for the one in Paris. But that's still like, what? Like, they literally just got those new suits. Like, those are literally new suits. There's no reason they should be changing suits again. Like, it's crazy. Of course, they have some BS where it's like, oh, they're super dive suits or something. But it's like, then why didn't they have those before? Like, why would they literally make suits that were only for one mission? It's a merchandising thing. That's all it is. Okay. Wow. This movie is kind of flying by. Let's do a little time check-in. I'm at 108, 31, 32, 33, 34. Okay. So yeah. Because now I have something to complain about. Right now, I'm going to complain about. And this thing, I don't think this irks people as much as it irks me. I hate this scene right now. I hate it. Not the Mari part. Like, I feel like Mari's being pretty Mari-ish. I like Mari in this scene. It's Asuka that I hate in this scene. And this thing, I hate Asuka so much in this scene, but then like, no. I hate Asuka so much because she doesn't make sense. Like, Asuka does not exist. I hate the writer. Like, the writer who wrote this is just like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is this happening? So let's see. Okay, she's acting all high and mighty. Because, so in my preview video, not my preview video, in my final predictions video, I predicted that the reason why Asuka was so upset in the previous movie was because, what do you call it? Was because she was upset that she wasn't saved like how Rey was saved. And I pointed out that I did not want that to be the case because that was shallow. And I feel like the writers realized that. We're like, you know what? That's kind of shallow. That's kind of shallow if she was so B-wordy and like just like angry at Shinji in the previous movie because he didn't save her like he saved Rey. And then so they realized that and they rewrote it. So it's like what just happened, what she just said is like, oh, you're upset not because like you're upset because I didn't save you or kill you. You're upset because I wasn't decisive. And I'm just like, no, like that is so annoying. So it's like they changed it in a way that's even worse and annoying. Because now I really hate Asuka. Because it's like, Shinji was not indecisive. Like, Shinji, that was one of the most decisive things he ever did. He was like, I will not kill her. Like, I do not care if I die. Like, I will not kill her. And part of it is, like, I wish that Shinji could have done a little bit more. Like, I wish that Shinji would have tried to save her. You know what I mean? Like, to not just refuse his father's orders, but to do things his own way. But it's very upsetting because Shinji doesn't get that chance at all. Like, literally, he says, I will not kill her. All his dad is saying is, like, basically, take her out. Like, it's an angel, take it out, take it out, take it out, take it out. He's not giving him any kind of feedback about how to potentially save her, about options besides that, like, that could possibly save her. He's giving him none of that. He's basically telling him to kill her, and he's refusing to do it, and then the father switches it over the dummy system. Like, he never really gets a chance to save her. You know what I mean? And even, it's so frustrating, because even before that, he mentions that, like, we're doing a mission without Misato, like, how do I know what to do? Like, because that's the thing, is, like, Misato is the person who's the tactician and, like, tells them what to do. And, like, that is such a B-wordy thing to put on this child. Like, you literally put all of that on a child that he couldn't save you. You're a grown woman. It's so upsetting. I hate Asuka. Oh, so annoying. And then, okay, the other thing that makes it annoying is because, like, if she wants to say, it's like, oh, it's because you're, like, indecisive, and, like, you didn't take responsibility for it. It's not her responsibility. Like, he's a child soldier, and it's not that he's indecisive, because, like, he decided he's not going to kill you, and then the father took control. You know what I mean? And then, if you're saying the indecisiveness is what's doing it, that literally has not been a problem for Shinji Ikari since 2009. Like, by the end of that movie, by the end of 2.0, he becomes decisive. He saves Rei. Like, if that's your problem with him, guess what? He already grew up. He already did the thing that you're complaining about him not doing. And then in 3.0, the movie where you're actively aggressive towards him, guess what? He wasn't indecisive in that movie either. He literally, at the beginning, he's like, let me help pilot Unit 1 and, like, help Asuka. And then at the end, he's like, he's piloting Unit 13 decisively. Like, it's so annoying. Like, basically they're trying to make it seem like that was his character flaw, and, like, that's why she didn't do it. Like, that's why she punched him. And it's like, that's literally has not been a character flaw of Shinji Ikari for the past 12 years in real lifetime, and the past, like, what is it? 14 years in their time. Like, literally 14 years in their time, and she's holding this grudge for something that isn't even a problem. Like, it's insane. But yeah. Going back to the launch sequence. Let me just move over a little bit. You know what? I'm gonna treat myself, because maybe it'll have me calm down and, like, not talk so much. I'm gonna open up a Snickers. You're not yourself. What's the slogan? You're not you when you're hungry. Have a Snickers. I think that's it. Ugh. Have I really talked about things that I like so much? I don't think I have. Sorry, I'm gonna try to open it away from the microphone. Oh, that's a good bite. Maybe it was too big of a bite. Sorry if that was a long pause. I took... Yeah, it was too big of a bite. Okay, this is another thing with the L... What is it in English? I think they translated it as, like, LC in the subtitles. Okay, here's another camouflage cocoon BS where, like, they're just getting attacked. And then they get attacked, and then the thing shows up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, but honestly, this sequence is probably my favorite part in the entire movie. I really like this. Like, I love the music. I love the what do you call it? The juxtaposition of this kind of, like, you know, hard, more modern sci-fi aesthetic, but you have this really old classic. I believe the movie. I watched this. I literally watched this movie. I think it's from the 70s, maybe, and I just love it. And I love this. I love that animation of them zooming in on one of the turrets on the other ship, and then it's shooting at the Wunder. I love that animation so much because it's just kind of wacky, and I feel like the music in the scene allows you to be like, oh, this is supposed to be a fun action scene, and that's what it is. It's just a fun kind of cartoony action scene. I like this scene a lot. Love the music. Love that little goofy animation. I don't know how I feel about the L. I'm just going to call it L Kekai, which is L barrier. L barrier, that's it. Okay. L containment field. That's what they did. Sorry. So L containment field. Like I don't. It's not really needed, and it doesn't like it being there and not being there doesn't really change anything to me. Like it's just like a weird thing that's happening around the South Pole for some reason. I don't like the infinities though. Like I think it's very cheap that like the infinities don't do any damage to them. Like if an Evangelion sized object smacked into your ship, it would do some damage. So I feel like that's kind of a cheap thing that like they're not doing anything. Like they're literally just going through them like nothing, like water. So that seems weird. And I love this part. Not yet, sorry. But they're getting double teamed by these two ships, which is something I called, by the way, in my bingo card. I was like, if there's another dark ship, then wouldn't there be 4 ships? Because that would mean all of them would be vessels of the Atom things, and so there'd be 4. And I was right, there was 4. I was thinking maybe there could be 5 because we didn't know if like Lilith or Atom, like we didn't know if Lilith was an Atom, which we still don't know. But yeah, I thought there'd be like more than just 2 though, so that was cool. I do love this though, where like it's trying to get away, and they're just like, no, ram it, and then so they ram it. Love that, and then I love the conclusion to it. Here it comes. And Midori, she gets the best line. See, this is the thing, I still like characters because of their potential, even though I feel like they're bad characters. Like Midori's not a good character, but I loved the potential. I love the idea of Midori, the brand of Midori. So this part I like when it just B slaps it, right out of the way. So yeah. Okay, so this is like the one action scene I like in the movie, and then after this, it's all downhill. Like immediately after this, I start hating the movie basically. Okay, because it's like what I mentioned earlier. Like once they get to the Wunder, like once they're out of the Village 3, it's just all plot. Like there's like no character for the rest of the movie for me. It's just all plot, and so this is really annoying starting from this point. Because a lot of these action sequences, they only work. Like it's kind of like when you're playing a video game and you make the character go off the screen and they just don't exist anymore. That's what's happening. Is basically if an Eva is not on screen, it just does not exist. Even though realistically it would exist and it would be doing things, like it just they just ignore that. So basically, once the Asuka and Mari stuff just starts happening, the other Wunder ships, they just don't exist anymore. Once the once the Nana series, what is Nana? 7? Once the Mark 7 series shows up, like once they're off screen, they don't do anything. Like it's just so weird. Like basically it's very bad video game logic. I'm not talking about modern video game logic. I'm talking about like, Super NES, like if you go a little bit left on the screen, a monster that was about to stomp on you just physically stops existing because he's not on the screen anymore. Yeah. Okay, because look, like how is this not incredibly stupid? So literally what they're doing is they're shooting a bunch of missiles at HQ to pop it open and reveal Unit 13. And it's just so dumb. It's just so dumb, you guys. Like, it would be the equivalent of like trying to. Okay. I actually do like this part because it is so dumb, and I think it's so funny. So they shoot missiles at it, and they reveal the thing, and stupid Ritsuko's like looking at it with binoculars. Like that's insane. That's so stupid. But what do you call it? And then the Nana series, the Mark 7 series, is just so dumb. I hate them. They're worthless. And this is literally where I tune out during the movie. Like when I was in the movie theaters, I would notice myself kind of tuning out right now when they're like dropping, because the next like 2 or 3 minutes is just nothing to me. Like it's just really bad choreography and doesn't make any sense. Like there's the Nana series is nothing. Like they literally are fodder, and not in a fun way. Like, what are they doing? Like, the ones that are flying past, where are they going? So this is what I'm talking about. All the ones that are flying past, where are they even going? Wouldn't they be going to attack the Wunder? Wouldn't the other 2 nerve ships also be attacking the Wunder. Like the Wunder and the Mark 6 series, when they're not on Mark 7 series, when they're not on screen, they just stop existing. And like Mari and them diving into these doesn't make any sense why they would feel confident. Like at a certain point, there's like it's surface tension. You know what I mean? At a certain point, it breaks. And in this case, well, more than surface tension, suspension of disbelief. I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Where it's just like it just doesn't make sense. Like it would be like you're fighting, like let's say like on a battlefield, like old style, like you got your muskets with your bayonets on the end of them, and it's like two people versus thousands. It's like that'd be ridiculous. It'd be ridiculous if two people won. And that's exactly what happens here. Like, I just don't understand it. And especially the weapons. Like, I don't even like this. Like, I hate this. Like, the fact that they're changing weapons so often, and for no reason. It's just like she stabs them, and she throws them aside with the weapon, and it's like, it's just so bad. Like, I don't understand how people could enjoy this. It's bad, you guys. It's so bad. Wow. I'm literally zoning out right now because it's just like, so this is also when I would see I felt similar to the Paris thing. This is even worse though to me. This is way worse than the Paris thing. But I would purposefully, what do you call it, walk in the movie theater late because there's like 15 minutes of previews and then there's like the 5-minute recap and then there's like the 10-minute Paris sequence. So I would literally walk in the movie theater like 30 minutes late sometimes because I did not want to watch any of that stuff, which is funny. And this is so stupid. This is so stupid that then all of them start merging together into like this drill thing, and they go in a straight line into a shredder. That is so stupid. It's so stupid. So stupid. Like, it's like literally like they're dumb. Like, it would be like, walking in a straight line. Ugh. Ugh, it's so annoying. And it's also, it's not just stupid, it is also ugly. Where they're not animating. Because the whole point of doing the CG animation is so that they could do like a ton of Avas at once or something, and then they just give up. And so they're literally just dots. And then look, you can see the two Avas, like Unit 2 and Unit 8, and you can see them in detail. So it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what we just saw was a representation of the Mark 7 series, but they're literally globules that were smaller than Unit 2 and Unit 8 that we could see. So it just looks ugly and bad to me. Not only is it dumb, not only is it stupid, it is ugly and bad. Sorry. These little arm units, I do kind of like these units. So these units, they were kind of what I wanted it to be still, because these units are much more in line with the Mark 7 series, not Mark 7, with the Mark 4 series and the previous movie, where they were kind of like an amalgamation of Ava parts. Like there's the needly one that's actually legs, like it's like two Ava legs that stick out like needles, and in this case it's like two arms that just like hop around, so it's like, they got that, and then plus they're purple. So they're much more in line with the Mark 4s from 3.0, so I like them. But then very confusing. At the end of the movie, they don't show up. And in no bonus material have they confirmed what these things are called or like if they're Avas. So like that's still unknown. Like we don't know if those things are Avas or not, which is very confusing. I feel like they should be, and they're not for some reason. It's very weird. By the way, on their knives, it says like SHV. So I wonder if it stands for something or if it's literally just Shiv. Like they're shivs basically because they're knives. Oh, and then here we get, it's just so dumb. Like literally, like see, once all the action scene starts in the second half of the movie, it's just so dumb. Like the entire rest of the movie is just all plot. It's all plot. Like no character. Like, and it's just the plot sucks. Like the lore and the setting and the plot sucks, and there's no character to speak of. And I'm like, to me, okay, see that's the thing. To me, a good story has like, I feel like at the bare minimum, you need really good characters. Maybe you could get away with a good plot, even if the characters are boring. And then if you have a good setting, it's kind of like a bonus. But this movie fails on all three. It's like the characters suck, the plot sucks, and the setting sucks. And it's like more than sucking. They don't exist. Like it's just like, this movie to me is like going to see like an IMAX movie in a museum. If you've ever gone to a museum and they had like, a 30-minute IMAX undersea experience. And it's like, to me, that's what this movie is. It's not a story. To me, this movie is a complete failure as a story. It is not a story. It is a movie by technicality. It is not a story. It is like going down to the IMAX and watching sharks in the ocean for 30 minutes and turning your brain off and looking at the lights and listening to the sounds. And I'm like, that was cool. But like, it's not a story. It's not a story, people. But yeah. See, and then now all of a sudden, the other two ships show up. Like, what were they doing? Okay, so this is another reference, I'm pretty sure. So this Nazca type painting. When I'm saying not Nazca, I mean like the lines on, Nazca lines in real life, um, on literally the South Pole. And so this is literally a plot point from Sayonara Jupiter, where in Sayonara Jupiter, they find Nazca lines on the polar caps of the moon and on Mars. And in this case, it's like they're literally finding Nazca lines on the polar caps of the Earth. So it's like, that's pretty directly a reference. This is also very stupid, where it's like, they're making spears, blah, 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 like they just have the power to do that for some reason. And then, so it's not even the fact that they have the power to do it, it's the fact that, like, they're just making up their rules to make anything they want fit, and, like, they're not even following their own rules. So it's like, they just made spears out of the Black Moon. And, like, the Black Moon seems to be core in some way, and, like, we see Ava Infinities pop out of it in this movie, and then also in, more specifically, in 3.0, like, you see the Ava Infinities pop out of the Black Moon, so it's like, okay, we can assume the Black Moon is made of core in some way, like, made of a core material, and then at the end of the movie, they make a spear out of a Wunder, but it's like, that's not what the other ships did. Like, the other ships never made spears out of themselves, they made spears out of, like, the Black Moon. So it's like, they're not even following their own rules. And look, there was another core cocoon, not core cocoon, camouflage cocoon, where it's just like a total BS sucker punch, basically. They keep on doing that. But what was I going to say? Sorry. The spear thing, the corn spear, what was I going to mention? Oh, that's the other thing about the units. Specifically Unit 8 and Unit 2. It's more than the plug suits, more than them changing the plug suits. For them to completely change how the units work between movies is annoying, because in the previous movie, they establish that that Viles, Evas, don't have unlimited power. And then all of a sudden in this movie they do. There's a small offhanded comment that Unit 2 is using the jet alone reactor, so I can kind of believe that. Oh, I missed it. Okay, so I do like the part where Asuka pulls off her eye patch. I love, because it's so overdramatic. Like, if you go back and watch it later on, the part where she pulls off her eye patch makes no sense, because it's just an eye patch. Like, she pulls off her eye patch and she acts like she's pulling out her eyeball. Like, she's so dramatic when she pulls it off. Like, if you've ever seen the series Bleach, it reminds me of, like, in Bleach, they have masks, and the masks are fused to their face, and to power up, they have to rip off the mask and their skin, basically. Even though it, like, immediately heals, you know what I mean? But that's what she's acting like. She's acting like her pulling off her eye patch was like, it was glued to her skin. It's an eye patch, like, calm down. Like, why did you tear it off like that? But yeah. And, okay, and then, this sequence in general, see, I can't believe we're already at this point in the movie, and how much I've been talking. This is insane. So, I feel like, I guess this is the highlight animation-wise. Like, I feel like this is the most impressive animation in the movie. Like, it's fun, the design is fun, but story-wise, I don't like it, and I don't think it makes sense, because, like, this is also on my bingo card. On my bingo card, I literally had a space that was Asuka has an AT field, and in my bingo results video, I didn't circle it, because I was, like, so unsure. Like, I'm like, is that what's happening? Like, even Japanese fans were like, what is happening in the scene? And so it does seem to be, consensus-wise, the AT field is Unit 2's, and then she's neutralizing it with her own AT field, which we don't see, but she has one, and so it's like Asuka's AT field is neutralizing Unit 2's AT field. It's like, okay, so I can buy that. I can buy that now. But what I can't buy, like, what doesn't make sense to the scene to me, like, what still feels like a plot hole, is that why is the unit getting powered up then? You know what I mean? Like, if Asuka's becoming angelified, why is the unit becoming angelified? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It would be like, I mean, if you want to put it in, like, RPG settings, basically, Unit 2 has its AT field out, and the AT field is like, it's at a power level of 50, and Asuka's like, you know what? I'm gonna make my own AT field at a power level of 55, and then so she makes her own AT field, and she breaks through it, and that would make sense, but it doesn't make sense in the context of the movie, because as she's powering up herself, she's also powering up the unit, so it's like, by the time she gets to, like, 55, like, power 55, the AT field would also hypothetically be more powerful. Like, the AT field would be at, like, power 100. So that's why it doesn't make sense to me. Like, they should have just had Asuka changed. Like, the fact that the unit changes makes it very confusing, because then it makes it seem like even though she's leveling up her own AT fold, she's also leveling up the unit, so it basically they're at a net loss, you know what I mean? Or not, there's no net change. I guess that's how you put it. There's no net change in the difference of their power levels, so that's why I don't understand it. As for this sequence, also doesn't make sense. I think what they're trying to hint at with this original Asuka, the original Asuka comment, it just does not make sense to me. But I think what's happening is I think that Asuka was the 19th, not 19th. Asuka was the 9th angel. So when she gets gooed right now, like, she's returning to being an angel? I feel like that's the only way it makes sense, is that Asuka was the 9th angel in the way that Rey was Lilith, which they don't even confirm. That's like one of those annoying things too, is like, in these movies, they never, in 3.0, they did the opposite of what they did in the TV series. Like, in the TV series, Ritsuko explains to Shinji that she's like a human, that she's like a hybrid angel with Lilith, and that she has like a reusable soul. Fuyutsuki does not do that in 3.0. In 3.0, Fuyutsuki just tells him that Rey's a clone of the mom. You know what I mean? So that's like, they never bring that up again. Like, they never explain that Rey is Lilith. We don't even know who's the real Lilith, because there's the Adams on the moon, who we don't even know if it's an Adams, but it looks like the classic Lilith, and then Lilith in Central Dogma, which they call Lilith, has an angel mask, and so it seems like maybe there's like some foolery going on there, but they never explain it. Okay, but going back to the Asuka thing. So I think what they're trying to hint at is that maybe Asuka she's like, the 9th angel is to Asuka as Lilith is to Rey. And that's why she could, like, angel fly into it, not just because she was, like, poisoned with it, but because she's based off that angel itself. Which is then why the original Asuka that comes to see her is, like, it appears as the angel aesthetically. Like how in 2.0, the angel is, like, all red, and then it has, like, red wings or whatever. I can't believe we're this far in the movie, and I've been talking, like, the entire time. Wow. that thumbnail. Gonna upset some people. Wow. And so this is all. So much of this stuff is just like, so it's just plot. This thing is like, it's one thing. I'm fine with plot holes, and I'm fine with, like, inconsistencies if your movie is about something. This movie is not really about anything. It's all plot. Like, it is all plot, and then it just tells you what the message could be, but it doesn't support it in the plot at all. Like, everything we've been watching so far has not thematically been about anything. Everything we've been watching is just plot. Like, it's just plot, and it doesn't make sense. So I don't understand how people are like, they overlook like a third of the movie, not a third of the movie, it's like half the movie that is just plot with no theme, and they're just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'll get into at the end, I'll get into like why people say they like this movie. But yeah. So this is another thing about the scene I'm wondering is like, so the Wunder is standing straight up, and there's a lot of gimmies. Like, this movie has a lot of gimmies where it's just like, oh, you just have to think that it could work this way. So it's like, when the Mark 9 comes back and merges with the thing, why does it unlock all the doors? Like, it unlocks all the doors for some reason, and the only reason it unlocks all the doors is so that Shinji can get out. Like, that's really the only reason it does it. And what do you call it? Another thing that's like, makes you think like, well, why wouldn't that happen? Is inside the ship, in 3.0, there's an offhanded thing where they mention gravity control. So you could say the reason why everybody's not flying around all over the place inside the ship when it's flying is because there's gravity control. But now, they're on top of the ship, and they're acting like real gravity. Like, they're acting like they're on top of the ship, real gravity's acting on them, and they're standing on top of the top part of the ship. But how did they get there? Like, how did they get out of the ship to the top of the ship? It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine it working out physically. Like, was there artificial gravity inside the ship, and then when they get to like a door or something, it turns off, and now they're working on normal gravity? Like, it's really weird. Ugh. Wow, there's too much stuff. It goes by way too fast to like talk about. Ugh. In the moment. And okay, and I meant to mention it earlier. The other thing that's like super annoying is the Seele thing, where Seele, they set up in the series is that like there's basically Seele and Gindo are versus each other, and then in the third movie, they could, it's something they should have gotten rid of during the time skip. Like if they had come back from the time skip and Seele was gone, that would have been much better. But they didn't do that, and they brought back Seele in the third movie, and then Seele seemingly lets Gindo kill them, but they're still around because they're like he still has to like work with them in some way, like through AI or whatever. And then they just don't deliver on that. Like in this last movie, it's basically Seele's dead. Like, but apparently this is what Seele wanted. Like Seele wanted a fourth impact, and so he made the 2 extra spears to make fourth impact happen, and then he uses the 2 original spears to then do his own fifth impact. Basically, the additional impact is what they call it. But it's so annoying because it's like they don't deliver on the Seele versus Gindo at all because they didn't have to. That's the annoying thing, is they didn't have to. Like they could have made it something that was resolved during the time skip, but they didn't. They added it to 3.0 where Seele's still around, and they let him kill them because they're sure that their plan's going to go through, but then their plan doesn't go through, but then that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's basically Seele was just dumb. Like, they brought back Seele in 3.0, and they're dumb, but it seems like they have contingencies, like, with the AI programs that, like, seem to pilot some of the units, like the Mark, and then even, I believe, Unit 13 has, like, it gets taken over at some point. So it's like, in 3.0 I'm talking about. So it's like, they have contingencies, and none of those are brought up. Like, if there's, like, some sort of Seele AI in this movie, like, why isn't it mentioned? Like, why isn't Seele, like, you know, stopping Gindo at all? Like, it's very strange. Like, Seele just is a non-character in this movie after they brought them back in 3.0 for some reason. Very strange. Oh no, did I miss the line? I feel like, yeah, I believe I just missed the line that I did want to mention. So the part where Ritsuko says, um, it sounds more unique in Japanese. Okay, that's so dumb. It's so dumb that like he's on top. How did he do that? And then look, it flies up. Like Unit 3, not Unit 3, Unit 1 just flies up out of nowhere. Like it's levitating. Nobody's holding it. It's just levitating. That's so dumb. So it's just like he shoots a beam that hits the ribcage somehow, and then the unit just levitates towards him. He's like all powerful. You know what I mean? Like it's not that fun. There's no logic. You know what I mean? Like he can basically do whatever he wants, and it doesn't make sense why he's not killing them. Like he's literally about to kill all of humanity. Like it doesn't make sense why he's not just like blowing up everybody. Ugh. Oh, so many plot holes. Then how did Shinji get there? Like how did he know where to go? How did he get there? The ship is also gigantic. You know what I mean? Like the ship houses 2 Evas. Like I want to say the ship is like 4 Evas long or something. Like it's crazy. Oh, this is another thing too that causes like a ton of problems. Where it's like, okay, so we see the tsunami of Eva Infinities. That it's a tsunami. You know what I mean? Like they're causing damage right now. So it's like if the plan was to restore the Earth and everybody could go back to their towns, you can't do that anymore. So like what happens at the end of the movie is like what's happening. This is also such BS that like the pillars stop the Ava Infinities, where it's like, okay, I guess it's just a barrier, a straight up barrier now. Okay, this is another thing too. So like, if you look at some of the terminology on here in this movie, they start reusing terminology that they already used because like you know sometimes the Christian terminology is used symbolically, like so. For example, I believe that on the map they just did of the L containment field, one of them is called like the layer. What's the layer? Cocytus and stuff like that, which is they're talking about the layers of hell basically. And look at Mari. How did Mari get there? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like Mari just jumped from nowhere onto the Wunder. How did she do that? It doesn't make any sense. Like the Unit 8 can't fly, and then also the Marks, the what do you call it? The Mark 9. Its entire problem in the previous movie was that it was made of core. Like it was such a hassle for them to deal with because it was made of core, and they just totally dropped that. Like all of a sudden, all the marks, like all the vessels of the atoms, are just like the core thing. They just forget. They're just like, oh, let's just forget that that was a thing that they had to deal with before. And yeah, and then Mari can just fly for some reason. Like earlier on when she jumped down from, what do you call it? Because she jumped down from HQ when it got destroyed, and then she jumped onto the Wunder again, and the distances just don't make any sense. Like it's like leapfrog times 1,000. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy. Um. Oh, This is the sequence that upsets me the most because it's so close to what I wanted. Because this sequence, I wanted there to be a confrontation with Midori and Sakura. Literally, I predicted this. A confrontation between Midori and Sakura and, like, Misato about the third impact stuff. But, like, what it should have been is that like, Misato should have admitted that, like, it wasn't Shinji's fault. Which she doesn't not do here, but she doesn't apologize. She doesn't apologize at all, but she's just like, I want to believe in him, and I'll take responsibility starting now. But it's like, no B word. It's like, you were responsible for him 14 years ago. And Sakura and Midori are upset for something he did that saved them all. And that's literally how this confrontation ends, where they're just like, he did save us, but he also brought misfortune on us. And so they just start crying and they give up. And it's like, what is even happening? Like, this scene should not be here. Like, if you were going to address this, you need to make it make sense. So, like, to me, how they could have made it make sense is that Misato was lying and that she kind of blamed Shinji for everything. Like, she had blamed third impact on Shinji, even though it wasn't his fault. And then she could have revealed in this scene that, like, not only was Shinji not responsible for third impact, but she was responsible for third impact. Like, that could have been a good twist. And, oh no, my earplug fell out. Let me get my earplug. But there is, I don't want to spoil it, but there's another production from this director that has a very similar plot point to that. So I'm just like, you literally had, this scene seems to be referencing that scene, but they leave out the key thing that makes that scene work and makes this scene not work. So that's really annoying. But yeah. This B word literally does not apologize. I hate Misato so much. Like, all of these characters are just bad people. Like, they're just bad people, or they just don't make sense as characters, which I feel like saying the former, but I know it's the latter. You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to say, like, I hate Misato, I hate Asuka. But then when I really think about it, I'm like, no, I really hate the writer. That's who I really hate. But yeah. This is also funny, that, like, Midori's just like, she's just, like, seeing how crazy Sakura is, and she's like, let's just back off. But realistically, there's no reason why Midori should have backed off at that point. Like, yeah. And then we got the taint shot from Sakura that's very distracting. Wow. Okay, see, and then Mari shows... Oh, I forgot to mention that. The other reason why that entire sequence doesn't make any sense is because they don't have Unit 1. Like, what Shinji is asking doesn't make sense because they don't have Unit 1. Like, what is he going to pilot? Like, it's not there. And then them responding to it also doesn't make sense because Unit 1 isn't there. So it's like, what are they even upset about? And then even if Unit 1 was there, it doesn't make sense that they would be so upset because Misato and Ritsuko literally said they have no other options. Like, they're out. Like, they cannot do anything else. So it's like, basically they're saying is, we're dead. Everybody's dead. So, yeah, what is the problem with letting Shinji try? Like, it does not make any sense why they would have a problem with that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then Mari shows up, and this thing. So Mari shows up, which magically makes it that it's like, oh, I guess they could have. They can go get Unit 1. But even then, it's like, none of the characters knew that. Like, none of the characters at any point acknowledged that Mari was still there and coming to get them to follow Unit 1. Like, that was never established at all. And this is... When he got the plug suit too, that also doesn't make any sense because, what's it called? I believe it's Ritsuko tells... Was it she either tells Maya or Sakura to go get the plug suit from Misato's cabin. So Misato's had Shinji's plug suit. But the Wunder is humongous. That's why, like, that's insane to me. That, like, they're like, oh, go get the plug suit from her cabin. So somebody had to go all the way there, get the plug suit, come back, and then he had to change, and then they went after Gendo. Like, we're talking about minutes. We're talking about this is the end of the world, and that entire thing must have taken, like, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's like time is of the essence, and they're just all sitting around talking. Shinji should have just gone in his, like, normal clothes, you know what I mean? Which would have also been like, in Evangelion, so that kind of would have also made aesthetic sense. Okay, now this is the real question. The real question is, I think thematically, it would have made much more sense that Shinji did not go on the final mission. Because literally he doesn't need to, because they already mentioned that Unit 1 is the engine to the Wunder, so he doesn't need to go on the final mission. Like, he should have stayed in Village 3. And the question, here's the million-dollar question. If Shinji had stayed in the town, would it have been better for the Earth? And what I mean by that is, let's say Shinji was not there at all, that entire last sequence would not have happened, but Mari would have gone after Gendo. So the question is then, Mari at this point in the story, could she have beaten Gendo? And I'm like, yeah, probably. Like, cause like, it's like, yeah, like, basically Shinji didn't even have to be there, is what I'm trying to say. Like, everything that he's doing could have been something that Mari had done anyways. So it's not like him being there to save the world or anything. He was basically just there because he's the main character, so he needs to be there. This is also very dumb. Like, how is that not dumb that, like, all of a sudden he's teleporting? And not only is he teleporting, he knows about teleporting. And then this part, why is Gendo talking about Rei? Why? And then, now Rei's here, and he's teleported there. Insanity. This doesn't make any sense. And then even the Rei thing doesn't make sense. So I think what they're trying to imply is that earlier on in the movie they said that only their hair grows. So they're trying to imply that Rei's been in there that long. But that doesn't make any sense because Shinji was also in the unit for 14 years and his hair didn't grow. And I guess it could... The only thing I'm trying to think is, like, are they trying to imply that physically, Rei was in the plug for so long? And that's probably also why earlier in the movie they retconned that the pilots don't need to eat or drink, even though in 3.0 Mari was drinking tea. Like, Mari was, like, had snacks and tea all over her plug. So it's like they can still eat. So it's like, oh, that's also dumb, the close to infinity thing. How... This is so hard. It is so hard to, like, to catch up with the dumb. Like, I feel like there's a dumb thing happening, like, every other second. Oh, this is so dumb. Ugh. Ugh. And I believe, yeah, this is the first time we've gotten confirmed that the Cassius and Longinus are the same spears, just transformed. Yeah. They do confirm that what do you call it? That the fruit of life and that the fruit of knowledge are different. That's what I was thinking maybe what they're setting up is that the spear of Cassius is different from the spear of Longinus, like how the fruit are. Where it's like maybe only the atoms get Longinuses, and then only like the Lilith species get Cassius, maybe. But they didn't do that. And I guess all of them are just the same. So yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay, so, oh, I totally skipped over it. So, like, going back to they're reusing terminology. So, look, so we're about to see the Golgotha object. So, Golgotha is already a thing they used. If you go back to 2.0, Golgotha is terminology they used to refer to the dummy system. So, the dummy system was developed at Golgotha base or something. So it's like they're reusing Christian terminology that they had already established with something else. Just like I mentioned earlier with Cocytus, where Cocytus is like one of the layers of hell, and they use that in 2.0 as well for the third angel facility, like when the third angel gets out at the beginning with Mari in Provisional Unit 5. So the terminology they use at that base, I forgot the base is called. I think it's Tagatha gate or something, base. But basically, at that base, they use the layers that the angel is breaking through as the layers of hell, such as Cocytus, and that's what they also use for the El containment field in this movie. So it's like they're at the point where they're reusing terms that they've already established in previous movies because they're like, I guess, running out of ideas. Like, I don't know why. But yeah. I'm also not a fan of the reused animation in this. Like, to me, it's not, like, nostalgic or, like, emotional at all. Like, it just feels lazy. It feels lazy. I do wonder, at this point, you can totally analyze it, like, against the actual footage, if it's the same... I feel like it's probably the same footage, you know what I mean? Just zoomed in, because there's a different aspect ratio. So I bet it's the same footage, just zoomed in a little bit. Like, they didn't reanimate it. And then you can get the motion capture scene. Some people defend this scene, and they say it's bad on purpose. And how I reject that is that if that's what you really thought, you wouldn't say that. If you would say it's not bad on purpose, you would say it's good actually. You know what I mean? You saying it's bad on purpose is you still saying it's bad. You know what I mean? If it was... Something can look like hypothetically bad, but actually good. So like that's what you should be saying. You should be saying it looks good actually. And here are the reasons why. If you're saying it looks bad on purpose, then you're agreeing. You're saying it looks bad. Like how I said earlier with the, what do you call it, with the turret on the Wunder, I don't say that looks bad. I say that looks goofy and I love it. I think it looks great. You know what I mean? Even though I would say it's not the most realistic, I would still say it looks good. You know what I mean? To me. So goofy. I do like this thing. The part where he falls on the side, like, it didn't shock me at all. Because, like, at that point, you're like, oh, like, they're on a set or something. And it's like, yeah, they're on a set. And I do agree that, what do you call it? Them switching, because it depends on the scene. Oh, I really don't understand. Like, people like this. Like, people are like, when people say they like this movie, I feel like the two common things I hear is that it was a happy ending. And to that, I say, wasn't. We'll get into that later. But I feel like somebody pointed out in my comments one time, and I like totally agree, is that the original TV series is a happy ending disguised as a sad ending or like a bad ending, and this movie is a bad ending, like, what do you call that? Camouflaged as a happy ending. Like, it's disguised as a happy ending when you really think about it, it's like not really. Like, it's basically a very like Ouroboros-y, like hypocritical ending where it's like it's eating its own tail. But yeah. This is also such BS. Like, every time Gendo talks, he's like, oh, this is all according to plan. But it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So he's like, he needed both spears. But yeah. And then, see, this thing is them cutting between, like, them giving meaning for the motion capture, and then them switching to 2D animation, and then also sometimes using motion capture kind of defeats the purpose. You know what I mean? Like, it's annoying. I cannot believe we're this far. Okay, let's do a time check-in. I'm at, what is this? 151, 33, 32, sorry, no. Wait, 151, 38, 39, 30, 40? Okay, there we go. That's just a quick check-in. But yeah. See, I'm pretty sure that was the exact same animation from 2.0. I don't think they reanimated it. But this thing is, it doesn't even mean anything, like, symbolically. To me, it's the equivalent of, like, we didn't even get into that. This is why I need to make a proper video, so I can, like, think through these points and articulate them in a timely manner. Is that, like, them reusing animation is, like, the equivalent of, like, you know, Rey in the Star Wars movies going back to Tatooine, where it's like, she doesn't have any connection to Tatooine. Like, this doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just there so that, what do you call it? So that fans can be like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that. It's literally the Remember Berries from South Park. Like, do you remember? I remember. Like, it's basically that. Like, it doesn't mean anything for the characters or, like, symbolically for the story. Like, it's just fan bait. That's all it is. Okay, so this is interesting. I thought this was an interesting thing to do, where it's like, okay, sorry. The other thing that people said that they liked about the movie is, besides the happy ending, is that, like, he fought his father, and I'm like, yeah, but it was, like, not a good fight. Like, it was not well choreographed. It was not fun to look at. Like, literally at a certain point, like, they do the animation where it's just, like, a mirror of each other. It's super boring. I don't like the fight at all. Like, it's not even a fight. It's not even a fight, people. But that's why it's interesting, where they introduce this aspect now. I mean, now we're on the Wunder, and we're getting into the spear thing. Oh, there's just so much. There's so much in this movie. It is crazy. So much bad is what I'm saying. See, so it's like, but like, even what Misato's saying, on a, like, that they can make it the new spear, on a basic understanding, doesn't make sense. Because it's like, they made a new spear, they made two spears out of two halves of the Black Moon. Even if the Wunder can make spears, why would you think the Wunder could make itself into a spear? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry, resituating myself. But this is so funny. What I love about this is that this scene gave Maya more character development than Mari. Because Mari has no character development. Like, Mari has no character development, not just in the movies, not just in this movie, but in all the movies. And this movie this is the problem with Young Men. Literally, Maya has more of a character arc than Mari. Okay, now getting back to Gendo. Okay, so this is the thing. This is the thing that upsets me most. Not upsets me most. One of the things that upsets me. Okay, so we have Black Lilith. So they introduce this thing that's like, they have to settle their things with words, right? Like, they can't fight. They can't fight to get what they want, basically. They have to settle it with words. So they introduce that, and that's why Shinji stops fighting, and then so now his father is showing him what he wants, which is the imaginary Ava. Okay, so they're talking things through. This is what the movie says it's about. And now look what's happening. Okay, he gets the spears. Okay, What does he do? He causes the impact. This makes no sense. This makes no sense. Like, literally, they just set up that they cannot force each other. Like, both of them have the spears and they're equals. And then now, all of a sudden, Gendo just has both spears and he causes the impact. So it's like the only interpretation that makes sense with their own logic that they put forward is that Shinji knows that this is what's happening and he's letting him do it. That Shinji is still in control of the spear of Cassius and he is allowing his father to cause the impact, which I don't think that's intended at all. I think they just forgot what they're doing. They literally just like, oh, like they're supposed to talk things through, but we want to have the impact. So we're just going to have the impact and hope nobody notices that this does not make sense, because it doesn't. Like, both of them had one Eva, and both of them had one spear, and they're fighting, and then they're like, we have to come to an understanding through words, and then Shinji's doing that, and then all of a sudden Gendo causes the impact and has both spears for some reason. It just does not make any sense. It's a complete not black hole, complete plot hole. The movie is a black hole. But yeah. And then you get your first live action shot with like some glass breaking. This movie is it's so bad. Wow. I do think it's very funny though that it's like they're trying to have like an end of Evangelion cake, you know what I mean? And like nothing's happening because it's like for some reason everybody on the Wunder is safe, you know what I mean? Like nobody on the Wunder is being tanked or anything, and they already established earlier that it's like all the villages, like all of humanity is in maybe a couple villages, like we don't know how many there are, but all the villages are in anti-L barriers, and outside of that there's no life. So all this imagery of like, you know, these white bodies walking around the earth and everything is like, it doesn't mean anything. Like they're not doing any damage. Like there's no stakes. There's no stakes at all. Like it's literally just weird visuals. Ugh. Now we get stupid Mari. So, okay, plot hole. How did Mari get in there? Why is Mari in there? You know what I mean? Like, how did she get inside the ship? And why would she even want to get inside the ship? And then we have Fuyutsuki. And then Fuyutsuki, basically what they even admit in this scene is Fuyutsuki just killed himself for fun. Like, there's no reason. Like, he literally admits, like, there's no reason for him to be piloting. And the reason why he dies at the end of the scene is because he wasn't meant to pilot. Like, the system was not meant for there to be an actual pilot. It's supposed to be on autopilot, like the other two ships were. So it's just so dumb. It's like basically he just kills himself. Like he literally kills himself for fun. Like that's all what that is. They just didn't know what to do with Fuyutsuki anymore. A little thing at the end though is he says like I've left everything for you that you need, and I think that's in reference to the vessel, so that she can make like the unit 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 or whatever. But then the question is, was he saying that facetiously, or was he like a triple agent or something like Kaji was, where he was secretly on Vile's side? Because that's the other thing that doesn't make sense to me about the scene in 3.0 where he tells Shinji that stuff, because the stuff he tells Shinji is incredibly hurtful. And like in the original series, Ritsuko tells that stuff to Shinji to mess with him. Like she's literally doing it because it's a dark, spiteful thing to get back at Gendo, because she spited him. So now she's spiting Gendo's son, because that's like the only way she knows how to lash out. Sorry. So, but before that scene starts, the Fuyutsuki in 3.0, he treats it like a good thing. Like he's like, oh, shouldn't we explain things to your son Gendo? And he's like, no, we shouldn't. And he's like, And then he explains things to the son, but he explains things to the son in a way that aren't positive. So that's what it makes me think that it's like, I think that scene was he was supposed to be manipulating Shinji and saying bad things to make Shinji have a depressive episode. Because otherwise, he's just stupid. Because like, of course, Shinji would have a depressive episode. So I don't know. I don't know what Fuyutsuki's role is. Like, you can read a lot of his actions either way, and in the end, he just kills himself for fun. It's so dumb. And this also sucks because up until this point, the movie has been like, I only like the one Wunder scene, action-wise. And so this scene with Mari gave them a chance to have to give Mari her own mass production unit scene. You know what I mean? Like fighting 3 units. Like this is what I was saying earlier in the movie. Like I'd much prefer a small fight with 1 unit or 2 units versus 3 or 4 units, which is what this scene should be. And instead, Mari just wins. Just wins automatically, which is so funny because it's like in the previous movie they set up, and now she has a magical AT arm for some reason. And in the previous movie they set up that the vessels for the atoms are a major threat because they're made of core, and they just abandoned that. Oh, and I forgot to mention they also abandoned the fact that Unit 8 needs to be, what do you call it? It needs to have a battery. And in this movie, they just abandon that as well. I meant to mention that earlier in the movie when we are talking about the units and how that's annoying. Where it's like they can kind of explain away the Unit 2 has the jet alone reactor, so it can run by itself. But then why can Unit 8 run without a battery when in the previous movie it couldn't? That's the thing, is like I would have been fine. I would have been totally fine if in 3.0 that it could run, that like all the units were now self-sustaining. You know what I mean? Like basically all the units had S2 engines, like, and they had their own internal power. I would have been fine with that after the time skip. But they didn't do that. They make it a plot point in the previous movie that Unit 8 and Unit 2 constantly have to recharge. And in this movie, they just totally ignore that. Like, just, yeah. And then also, that also refers to, that's also applicable to the Wunder as well. With the Wunder, in the previous movie, they established that the only reason the Wunder can fly now is that they have, what do you call it? It has the Unit 1 as a source, as an energy source, as an engine. And then now, in this movie, it's just like, Unit 1 gets taken away, and the Wunder can just operate because they need it to operate. And then they do have some offhanded lines. It's like, it's reserve power. I'm like, that's not how an engine works. You can't just take out your engine and still operate. Like, it's insane. It doesn't make any sense. Wow. Ow. Oh, there are so many things I wanted to talk about, and there's not enough time. There's not enough time. There's never enough time. Okay, this is super annoying too. That's not how hair works. That's not how hair works, people. You can't just take your hair out of a ponytail and have bangs. You either have bangs or you don't. You can't just like your bangs don't go in a ponytail. It doesn't make any sense. I hate it. the only way, like, what do you call it? Misato's hair makes any sense is if, since they're merging with reality and imaginary, that her hair magically changed. Like, it's imaginary, you know what I mean? Because that's what the background is supposed to establish, I guess, is that the imaginary has, like, come to the outside world as well, so we're not sure if what we're seeing is being affected by Evangelion imaginary. So it's like, that's the only way you can make the hair thing make sense. It's so upsetting, though. I was so upset when I saw it in theaters. I'm like, no, that's not how hair works. That's not how hair works. But yeah. I really hate the reuse of End of Evangelion imagery. Okay, wait. Quick thing. What do you wish for? So now they're talking. I choose a world that you refused, a world where there are no AT fields. Okay, so the reason I wanted to point that line out real quick is I'm pretty sure. I am definitely in the camp that these movies are a direct sequel to the original television series, and I feel like that's the main line that I would refer to. Because at no point in the stories up until now has he ever been presented with that line besides, like, End of Evangelion. So I'm pretty sure that's what he's referring to. Is that, like, maybe Gendo now knows about the previous timeline somehow, and that's what that's in reference to. Is basically he's saying he's the one in command of instrumentality this time, and he's choosing what Shinji did not choose the last time, which was an End of Evangelion. I feel like that's like the only way that line makes sense. Ugh. I hate this. I do also. So watching the previous movies, because I watched the previous movies with the dubs, and it was definitely, I thought they would hold up better. Like I thought this final movie couldn't ruin the first two movies for me, but they kind of do, because there's just like a lot of retcons or things that don't make any sense. Where, what do you call it? Them trying to establish that Shinji was afraid and he never wanted to talk to his father, but now he wants to, is just a straight up lie. Because like he literally spins, like he really wants to talk to his father. Like the only like there's a couple times where he doesn't want to talk to him. You know what I mean? That's fine. Like that does not make him a permanent state of not wanting to talk to his father and never trying to, which is what this movie tries to portray it as. Like I'm trying to think, in the first movie, there's one scene in the very beginning where after he goes on his first child soldier mission, he sees his father in an elevator and he doesn't board it, and like he turns away from him. Like that's an example of how they're trying to portray Shinji as the entire time. But no, Shinji's not a static character. Like he changed and he grew up, and in 2.0, a major plot point is that he wants to talk to his father. He wants to understand his father. He reaches out to his father. Like there's this really nice scene where literally Shinji's just like in bed and he tries to call his father. Like he's literally just like reaches out to his father. Like he's like, I want to talk to him, and he calls him on his cell phone. Like that is so crazy. And they just try to ignore that even happened. And then even if you go back to 3.0, like he tries to talk to his father, like literally in the beginning of 3.0, he's like, Father, I want to talk to you. And then his father ignores him. So it's like them trying to misrepresent Shinji as a character who is ignoring his father is just, it's just very insincere, and it's just wrong. It's just like, it's straight up retconning. Like it's super annoying. Getting back to the scene proper, though, I am not a fan of, what do you call it? I'm not a fan of the visual portrayal of this, where I feel like it would be much more, it would have been, it's lazy. I feel like the only reason it's all sketchy is because that's like a thing. That's like a thing that people do when they're having like something serious. They'll do like a weird visual change. But like, I feel like they never gave it thought to be like, is this more effective than just showing it like realistically, like how we show Asuka's flashback later on? And I'm like, that would have been way better. Like, one of the problems with Gendo is that he's such an obfuscated. I feel like that's a correct pronunciation. Like, he's such an obfuscated character where it's like, just show us, like, make him a real person by showing his real life in like a real way. But instead they make it all sketchy and warpy, and it's like that's like, it's not good. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay, it's not awful. It's not awful. It's just like, if they had even thought about it for a second, like which way works better, I feel like most people would be like, yeah, it would have been worked better if we actually saw it like it was a flashback, basically. Like, I believe it's episode 20 in the original series where we had the flashback with Fuyutsuki's perspective. Like, if we basically had that with Gendo, and like we saw him being a real person having to live with other real people, like it would have been much more emotionally effective than just this sketchy background stuff. And the story, and by the way, so when people talk about how they like the movie too, like, I feel like the people who say they like the movie is like, it's mainly happy ending and then the Gendo stuff. And when I said Gendo fight, it's not just the Gendo fight. People are like, I like that they gave Gendo like a backstory. And I'm like, B-word, what backstory? Like, his backstory is the exact same. It's the exact same as the television series. And that's why I don't understand how you can walk away from this feeling differently about Gendo. Because it's the exact same, but Gendo is a worse character. Like, so in End of Evangelion, literally, the end to Gendo's arc is him confronting his wife, and I believe it's the other race. So it's like, it's Yui and the other race, and Karu talk to him in instrumentality, and they basically dole out like why he was a bad father. Like, you're a bad father, you're a bad person, and then Yui bites his head off. Like, that is amazing. Like, that's like, it feels right. It's like, what do you call it? He was not a good person, and he was not accepted by his wife in instrumentality. That feels so cathartic and good. And in this movie, he's worse. He's like super Hitler. Like, super Hitler. Like, he literally has killed the entire planet. He's way worse than he ever was in the original series. And for some reason, he gets a happy ending in this one. It doesn't make any sense. Because his entire backstory is like, I'm a bad person, basically. It doesn't make any sense. It's same. He basically had the same backstory. They just gave him more time to monologue in this. It's so dumb. It's so dumb, people. And this is what I hate most about it, is that people say that they like that the movie is about communication, and I'm like, no, it's not. Like, this movie is about, like, I call it discommunication, where it's like, it's people pretending to talk, and they are talking, but they're not having a conversation. Like, what just happened with Gendo right now didn't, like, Shinji is not having a conversation with Gendo. Gendo is just monologuing and having word vomit, and they're not having a back and forth. Like, that is not conversation. Like, it's just talking. It's just talking. Like, it's not communication. I hate it so much. Ugh. Ugh. So this is another thing that's also just like, did Misato, like, did Misato really have to sacrifice herself? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like they just wanted to have Misato sacrifice herself. Because realistically, if it was a lance, why couldn't Unit 8 just use the lance? You know what I mean? Like, why couldn't Unit 8 just deliver the lance as a lance? And also, like, why does Ava Imaginary, like Ava Imaginary right now blocking it with its hands is kind of strange, you know what I mean? Like, when you think about it for more than a second, like, it's just there to be an action piece, even though, like, realistically, like, why is Ava Imaginary doing that? And if Ava Imaginary is, like, a fighter, like, if we're considering Ava Imaginary a fighter in this fight, like, it could just, like, wreck everybody's crap, and it's not doing that. So it's just a very strange sequence. Like, ultimately, the entire sequence to me just feels like an excuse to have Misato sacrifice herself, because that's a thing that happens in, you know, movies. Yeah. Like, there's no thematic or emotional depth to this scene to me. Oh, I forgot to mention it earlier, actually. So one thing about Misato, because also Misato is like, she's like Gendo, you know what I mean? Like, she's basically the new Gendo, which I wish they would have gone into more, because they don't really. But I feel like that's what they're trying to kind of set her up as, and they didn't really deliver on it. But with her son, in the documentaries, preliminarily, the son's name was actually supposed to be Shinji. So that would have been interesting. Like, if you go back to the scene where he meets him at the purification zone, like if he met Shinji, you know what I mean? Like Shinji meeting Shinji, like that would have been interesting. And it would have showed that, like, that she really did have more regret about what she did to Shinji. Yeah. This is the other thing. Like, ugh. Because this thing, his fight with Gendo, he doesn't, like, they don't talk anything through. Like, it's literally just Gendo just word vomits for a while, and then he just gives up. Like, Shinji doesn't do anything. Like, he doesn't talk him through. He doesn't talk him down. You know what I mean? It's like literally just Gendo looks in on himself for the first time and he gives up. And this thing, I do like this next part. Is it unearned? I feel like it's unearned. I feel like that's one of the main words I would describe this movie as, is unearned. Like, all the good parts of the movie are unearned. So this part, where he goes back and he hugs Shinji. So it's not the hugging Shinji. It's the part now where he says, I see. So that's where you were, Yui. So the reason why that bugs me, though, is I like that. I like that a lot. I like the idea that what he was searching for all along was in Shinji, and in a metaphorical sense, you know what I mean? Like, the love that he had for Yui was always there. It was the love he could have had for Shinji that he was too stupid or scared to even attempt having. But why it gets confusing, though, and this is the thing, even the first time I watched it, I was like, is that what they mean, though? Or do they mean, and I know that's stupid, but I was like, or do they mean that Yui's literally inside Shinji? Because that's also what I was thinking, and then at the end of the movie, I still think that. I'm still wondering that, because I'm just like, I think that is what he maybe meant. Because then at the end, Shinji says the same thing. Like, literally, oh, you were in me the entire time waiting, when she saves him at the end. So I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what the point is. Like, that scene would have been much better if the scene later on didn't happen with Yui. Because I really don't know. Because it seems like maybe Yui literally was inside of Shinji, not just figuratively. And it could be both. It could be both. But I think her potentially physically also be like, her potentially literally being inside of Shinji kind of undermines the figurative aspect of it. Getting to Asuka. Okay, so the reason why the Asuka backstory sucks is because if you go back and you watch 2.0 now, her character makes way less sense. Like the life she's shown to be living. Oh, this is another scene that drags on, is when they have these the simulations of the Evas. It just goes on and on and on. Like, this is another scene where I kind of zone out in the theater sometimes. Like, it doesn't need to be this long. I don't know why. I feel like they just did a ton of animation, and it could have been like 3 seconds, and instead they did it for like 15. But yeah. And then here we have her third plug suit in the movie. So many plug suits, so many merchandising material. But yeah. So if you go back though and you watch 2.0, Asuka's character makes a lot less sense now, because it's just different. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Another plot hole though. So like this scene right now. So we see Yui, Gendo, and Shinji all together, and she sees them. So this is definitely a flashback. You know what I mean? Like, this is a memory of hers. So why this does not add up is because previously in the scene that we just had with Gendo, is they reveal that Gendo made Rei in response to Yui's death, which means that he made Rei after the scene, which means that Asuka was made before Rei. So then it doesn't make any sense why Rei is the first child. You know what I mean? Like, Asuka should be the first child, Rei should be the second child, and then not only that, why does Rei suck so much? That's what it really messes up. Is like, why does the Rei series suck so much if the Asuka series works fine? And I'm talking about the fact that, like, the Rei series can only survive inside Nerve or whatever, and Asuka doesn't have a limitation like that at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so we get this, you can argue, is Asuka's fourth new plug suit in the movie, because this plug suit is, what do you call it? It's actually the plug suit from End of Evangelion. And it's also damaged. So if they make merchandise of it, that's going to be like 4 merchandisable plug suits they made in one movie. That's insane. And so the first couple times I watched it too, I did not get that she was supposed to be older. Like, it was like something that crossed my mind, but I'm like, I feel like it should have been more obvious, because like, now getting to the Karu stuff. But I feel like it should have been more obvious if she's adult Asuka. But I think it is supposed to be adult Asuka, but she basically looks the exact same. Ugh. The movie's almost over. Dang. So this is also very confusing, where I feel like in the previous movies, they were alluding to some sort of relation between Shinji, Gendo, and Karu, where like Karu literally says, "You're me, Shinji," and then Shinji's like, "Oh, you're like my father," and then so it's like I feel like maybe there was something there where they were trying to do like a like if Karu is a clone of somebody, he could be a clone of Gendo, or he could be a clone of Shinji. Like there could have been something they were trying to do, but it doesn't come across in the end. But yeah. And so this is when they start hinting at the idea that Shinji's going to be getting rid of the Evas, which does not make sense. It does not make sense, people. But yeah. Um, and then they confirm that's like, yes, Karu is a time traveler, which is, I don't understand how you're not upset about that. I don't understand how you're not upset about them teasing that a character is a time traveler for 14 years. It's like in real time. In real time, they've been teasing that Karu is a time traveler for 14 years in real time. And then they drop it in the final movie like it was nothing. They're just like, oh yeah, he was. But like that's a major plot point. Like that is a major plot point. If one of your characters is a time traveler and you don't explain it or explore it at all, like it's I don't understand how you're not upset by that. That's crazy. Oh, and I forgot to mention it with the Asuka thing too, because they do the exact same thing here with Karu, where they give Karu a mini arc like right after explaining it. So I actually do like this. I like this idea of Karu. His arc would have been um basically the selfishness in selflessness, where he misinterpreted his selflessness to get Shinji's happiness as a good thing, you know what I mean, like as altruistic, when in reality it was just Karu being selfish. Like it was him pursuing his own happiness. And I think there's truth to that. Like I think there's truth to that, and feel like that's an interesting story that you could explore, but they didn't. They literally just said it. Like they're just like, "Oh, that would have been your arc if we had done that." But they didn't do that. Like they did not establish that in the previous movie. They did not explain that in this movie. They just introduced it and then told us that that was his arc. So that's really annoying. They do the same thing for Asuka, but even worse, where Asuka doesn't have an arc. In the past two movies, Asuka does not have an arc, but then in Instrumentality, they introduce an arc for her and then finish it a minute later, which is the arc that's like, all I wanted was somebody to pat my head. And then a minute later, they're just like, oh, you have that. Like, you can have that right now. If you go back to Village 3, and then, Kensuke's basically that for her. Which is also upsetting. I didn't get into that. But it's I'll get into that later. But that's also upsetting. And then now he finally goes to Rei. And then he explains he's gonna make a new world. Oh, so this thing, I feel like I went too easy on it in my preliminary review too, because I said that I liked Shinji. But what I really meant, and what I should have specified, is I liked Shinji's arc in the first half of the movie. Because I really did. I liked Shinji's progression kind of in the first, what do you call that? In the A part in Village 3. But my problem is that after that, the movie's basically over. Like the rest of the movie is just all plot and it's like nonsense. And Shinji is he's kind of at the center of it at the end. And so I don't like Shinji. I don't like Shinji at the end of the movie. Like he doesn't really make sense. He's just a vehicle to end the story and be kind of the marketable main character to do that. You know what I mean? Like I don't like it. Ugh. Okay. And so this song is kind of the last big reference to Sayonara Jupiter, where this is the credit sequence song for Sayonara Jupiter. By the way, though, I watched Sayonara Jupiter. I didn't hate it. Apparently, it is very hated. I listened to multiple podcasts and YouTube videos about it. And in the tokusatsu community, it's kind of seen as a very bad movie. But people like collecting it because it's a weird historical artifact kind of for tokusatsu fans. But I didn't think it was terrible. I would say on paper it's bad, but I didn't hate the experience of watching it. But it's a very critically panned movie. It's a 4.4 or something on IMDb. So I have no idea why he thought it was a good idea to kind of base a lot of his movie off of it. Because it is very tonally, this movie is very similar to Sayonara Jupiter, where just things don't make sense in Sayonara Jupiter. But it's less offensive when it's not the final installment of a franchise that you've been putting off for the past 14 years, you know what I mean? Or 9 years in real time. But yeah. This is also strange where it's just I don't know what the implication there is supposed to be. So Gendo is still there, and Gendo, it's obviously, it seemed like they're giving Gendo a happy ending, which I don't agree with. I don't think Gendo deserves a happy ending. That's one of my problems with this movie as well, is that it's a very cowardly movie in the sense that it only thinks that growing up means like not crying anymore, or like not like growing up is like not crying anymore and not having hate in your heart. And I'm like, no, like it is good to cry sometimes, and sometimes people deserve to be hated. Like sometimes people deserve to say F you to people. You know what I mean? And this is a movie that does not have the backbone to say F you to people, and I don't think that's good. Like I think that's a very bad message. Especially like with literally Super Hitler. Like getting to Super Hitler. But yeah. And so in this scene with everybody coming back now, like, to me, I feel like this is the type of scene where, like, is what I imagined could happen in End of Evangelion. Or in End of Evangelion, they say everybody can come back. So I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what I was imagining would have happened in Evangelion, like, off-screen, where people are, like, coming back in the ocean or something. But, in terms of this movie, I don't understand how it feels this positive to people, because it's like, the world is decimated. So it's like, where are all those people going to go? Because they all came back at once. You know what I mean? Like, where are they landing? Where are they going? And I mean, if you watch my Endings Explained video, what I think is happening right now, I think this is real. So I think that everybody comes back. Village 3 is still there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how Asuka and how all the escape pods from the Wunder got to the village so fast, because they went from Antarctica to Japan. Like, that's a really big difference. Like, it doesn't make sense. But so this is what I think. I think this beach scene is supposed to mirror the beach scene in End of Evangelion. So this is supposed to be him basically waiting on the beach, and then instead of Asuka coming back, it's Mari comes back for him. But what I think is happening though is that after this, when it cuts to the train station, I think that is the end of this story. And then that's so my theory is that it was all a dream. So I think that this beach scene is what the original beach scene was with Asuka, you know what I mean? And so this is this beach scene, and then when it comes to the station, that's the start of a new story. And so it's kind of your interpretation where, what do you call it? Is that the start of a new story for these characters? Or is that the start of a new story in reality, and it's like a different Shinji? But yeah. I really wonder when people cry in this movie, though. When I was watching the documentary, too, because I know they showed some of the staff crying, and it seemed like the part that people cry at is the part where the Evangelions get destroyed. And I'm just like, that scene is like, not only is that scene like not only is it not like sad or emotional, I mean, it is kind of emotional in a funny way. Like, I think that scene is funny. Because it's just like, it doesn't make sense why Shinji is coming to this conclusion to destroy all the Evas. Like, why that is his main objective. It just does not make sense to people. It does not make sense. Ugh. So here, though. So my interpretation, though, is that it was a dream. So I think that this is his story. Like, this is the story of Rebuild. And then right now, cut. So right there, I think the story of Rebuild ends. And now, right now, we're seeing right now, this is the Thrice Upon a Time of the title. So this is the start of a new story, basically, with the train station. And how this thing, I don't like the final scene. I think this final scene is BS, because it could mean many things. With this final scene, I say you could look at it all metaphorically or like symbolically, you know what I mean? And you could say like, this is the world rewritten, or this is just him and Mari are still in the anti-universe, and this is all not physically happening. So when they run outside the station, they're finally leaving the anti-universe to go back to the real world. So the beach scene was also not in the real world. But then it's like, why did they cut from the beach scene to this scene? Like, there's too many plot holes. I can't believe I made it. I can't believe I made it through this entire movie. Talked the entire time. I didn't even talk about all the things I wanted to talk about. Ugh. This thing, I think the thing that makes the most sense, I mean, I think one of the things that I would have liked the most, actually, would have been if this was literally a time skip. Like, if this was literally their world 14 years in the future after they've restored things. But that's one of the few ones that I feel like it does not make sense. Like, I feel like that's one of the interpretations you cannot do, realistically, because of the choker. Like, there's no reason why he would be wearing that choker for 14 years after that. So that's like the only interpretation I would not... I like it, you know what I mean? Like, I would have liked if that's what they had did, but I don't think that's a valid interpretation, ultimately. So this thing, I in Japan, everybody stays in the theater, and I love leaving. Like, because I saw, so I saw it 3 times on opening day, and I loved walking out of the theater right at the credits, because like nobody else wants to do that. You know what I mean? And I love doing that. Um, and I do have trauma from this song now. Like, it sucks because before the movie came out, I really liked One Last Kiss, and I was really hoping that like the movie wouldn't ruin it for me, and it did. So like, I can't listen to One Last Kiss. Like whenever I hear it, like I have it on my iPod, not my iPod, but what's the thing? Not iTunes, Apple Music. I have Apple Music on my Android, and like I can't listen to it because it's just like it reminds me of sitting in the theater and I'm like, oh, that's it. Like that's really it. I'm like, oh, that's so bad. So yeah, the soundtrack though, ironically, the soundtrack I can listen to, but I can't divorce this song for some reason from the movie. Ugh. It's just because the ending is so obnoxious, so obnoxious. Ugh. Well, so that's it for the commentary portion. I'm surprised I got through the entire thing. We'll see if I actually release this now. I think if I release it, I was not as articulate as I wanted to be. So I think I may tone down the thumbnail. If you go to my Twitter, you can see what my thumbnail was originally going to be if you don't think it was that bad. But I may tone down the thumbnail and I may just release this for the people who wanted to listen to it. Ugh. Now that we're in the credits though, we're in bonus time. So I think what I'll mention is that one of my problems with Kinsuke, as you may have noticed, I had some Kinsuke hate. And I hated Kinsuke mainly because like he was so close to what I wanted the movie to be. Like the theme of the movie, where it's like I wanted Shinji to learn that not only bad things happen after bad things. You know what I mean? Like good things can also happen after bad things. Like you don't have to undo and redo everything, which is I also feel like what the theme of the previous movie should have been. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he blames Near Third Impact on him as well. And it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But it's like, who cares? Like, who cares about Near Third Impact? Like, ugh, it's so frustrating. Oh, but so the other problem I had with not Shinji, not Kinsuke, that's it. The other problem I had with Kinsuke though is that I feel like I want to save this and like talk about it in a video one day. Is that Kinsuke is, what do you call it? Kinsuke's part in the movie should have and could have been entirely usurped by Mari. And I feel like that would have worked so much better, where it's like Mari and Asuka like live together in like a shack outside of town because they're pilots or whatever, and like people don't like pilots for some reason, which was not supported. Like it was not supported in the town at all. Like that was only something that was ever mentioned like on the Wunder, and even there it does not make sense because it's like half the Wunder crew are made by previous Nerve people, so I don't get what the hate for the pilots is. But you can basically replace most of the Kinsuke stuff with what's her name? With Mari, and that way it would actually give Mari an arc. It wouldn't exactly give Mari an arc, but it would give her more purpose, where at the end they try to make Asuka's arc or whatever be that she doesn't think she has somebody who will pat her on the head and be there for her. And one of the things that really upsets me about that scene in the instrumentality is they unironically have that scene, and earlier in the movie, literally, what is the first thing that Mari does when she sees Asuka is she basically pats her on the head. She goes up to her, gives her a really big hug, and she like rubs her cheek on her cheek. You know what I mean? It's like even more intimate than like patting somebody on their head. So it's like that's like, how can you unironically make that somebody's arc, and then because it was like the instrumentality, how they portray that arc is that she doesn't realize that she already has that, and they portray that the person for that is Kinsuke, but it's like Mari is also that person. You know what I mean? Like Mari could have just as easily been that person, and it also doesn't make sense from the perspective that, what do you call it? How much time does she even spend there? You know what I mean? Like she would probably spend way more time on the Wunder than she does at the town. And if she were to spend that much time at the town, then where's Mari? You know what I mean? Basically, I feel like one of my problems with Mari is that they were writing a character for Asuka that they gave to Shinji for some reason. And if you look into the behind the scenes material, they kind of were writing her for Asuka. Like in the preliminary plans for 2.0, like almost all of the Mari stuff was revolved around Asuka. And then even for this final movie, there was supposed to be a lot more Mari Asuka stuff. Like if you remember the preview from the end of 3.0 with the, what do you call it? With the Unit 8+2. And there's a ton of like artwork that they did for Unit 8+2 as well. So it's like, I feel like they didn't realize it, but they were writing Mari for Asuka and they gave her to Shinji for some reason. So I don't like that. I feel like it would have made much more sense, especially with this final movie, that Shinji's arc being that, he does not end with anybody. You know what I mean? I'm not saying romantically at all. I'm not saying end up with anybody like that. I'm just saying if the ending was ultimately, especially when they framed it as like self-sacrificial, when he was like stabbing the thing towards his throat, the spear for like no reason, like that would have made more sense to me where it's like he's the only one who kind of moves on and like he moves on without everybody, you know what I mean? Like he lets everybody else move on without him. Like I feel like that would have made more sense. Like to me, the track at the end, like if you want to represent the train station at the end of the movie as him letting go of all the other people on the tracks, it would make much more sense to me that like, you have Shinji, you have Asuka and, you have Karu and Rei talking to each other, and then you have, on the other side of that, you have Asuka who was there, but then if you also had Mari, like I feel like that would have been the most thematically appropriate to me, where it's like he grew up because he like, he let everybody else go basically. Ultimately, why I think Mari's there. Okay, no, sorry. Ultimately, why Mari's there is, I thought about this earlier, and it's like 100% true. I can't like not think about it now. A quick story. So the third time I saw the movie in theaters, I was literally laughing. Like I was laughing during the final scene because it's so ridiculous that that Mari's like the final girl or whatever. And the only reason Mari is the final girl is because it's different. And then recently I just realized what she is. I'm like, oh, Mari is literally the yellow lightsaber at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. Like that is 100% what she is. Like the reason why Rey turns on a yellow lightsaber at the end of that movie, and the reason why Mari shows up at the end of this movie is the exact same reason. It's because it's different. Like that's all it is. They want to differentiate themselves from the previous series and be like, oh wow, that ended really differently. And it's like, yeah, that's freaking easy to end differently because it's like yellow lightsabers didn't exist anymore. Mari didn't exist in the old series, you know what I mean? So it's just a very cheap way to like make the audience feel like, oh, that was so different and unique and new. But it's cheap. Totally cheap. Alright, so tell me if you liked this commentary. I can't believe I made it through the entire thing, just talking like the entire time. But yeah, it's mostly made for haters like me, you know what I mean? So discuss below. If you made it through all this way and you're not a hater, I wonder if I, ruin the movie for you in some ways. Like if you're gonna rewatch it and be like, man, that was right. That doesn't make sense. That'll be interesting. Well, that's it for now. Comment what you want on the video. Bye everybody.